Kirti ji, we are good to go.
Okay, are we on?
Yes.
Okay then. We start now. Thank you, Kemaya. Friends and colleagues, welcome to the 100th episode of INHAF's webinar series on Rethinking City. The topic today is public transport and BRTS in our cities, and within that, prioritizing the bus. The same as we discussed yesterday, but being addressed by a full set of new individuals. Today's webinar is being moderated by a transport planner, Abhijit Lokre of Urban Lab, and then have such distinguished professionals, academics, administrators, political workers, and activists as Professor Geetam Tiwari, Professor Rutul Joshi, Vandana Chavan ji, Dr. P Agarwal ji, Sanskriti Menon ji, Anagha Paranjpe ji, Jugal Rathee ji. Two other distinguished individuals whose names are not in the poster but have kindly agreed to present their views are Dr. Rajendra Jagtap ji, past CMD of PML and manager of BRTS Ahmedabad, Shri Vishal Khanama ji. It's almost inconceivable to get such a galaxy of informed and experienced people on a single platform. We are fortunate in having them with us today, and it's going to be very rich dialogue. And I must take this opportunity to thank them for making time for this meeting today, despite very short notice and despite they being very busy. As I mentioned, and this is where I'm going to take a little more time, this is the 100th episode of India's INHAF's webinar series on rethinking cities. It has been going on now for 3 years, and believe me, we launched it during the COVID lockdown. It was meant to be a 3-episode event. We started with 3 and now are at 100. If it has survived, grown, and built some following, much credit goes to those who supported the cause, encouraged effort, and contributed time. Also, to my dedicated and hardworking colleagues who worked behind the scene to see it succeed. They deserve thanks and congratulations from me and from everyone else. Under the banner of the webinar series on Rethinking City, mainly the Indian city, over the years, we have had over 70 co-organizing partners. Some 40 themes and sub-themes have been addressed, and almost 500 urban specialists, professionals, practitioners, and community groups have shared ideas, their work, perspective, and concerns. It has already resulted in a book called Conservation and the Indian City, Bridging the Gap, and one more book titled Conversation on City Economy, Growth, Inclusion, and Sustainability, based on 7 selected webinars and other contribution is in the making. We should have it in another 3 or 4 months' time. We started this series by saying this webinar series is part of a wider national societal effort aim to bringing in not only fresh ideas and new perspectives, but also new voices and a new collectivism, a new togetherness, new partnership, and new energy in articulating the need for and ways to rethinking our cities, both redefining the urban challenge and finding more effective ways to addressing it. It is taking the urban challenge to the people, and it is preparing them to engage and contribute. As we prepare and we have committed ourselves to 50 more such webinars in coming months and years, there is no good answer to oft-asked question as to what has been achieved of the early objectives. It's clear, however, that we have to learn more, work harder, and must do this work better. A minor but an important matter. I'm indulging in this and I'm very keen on that. What one may find intriguing is that this webinar series is almost no cost exercise. Besides the Zoom facility, which gets shared with many other interaction and some staff time, they too are shared. There is hardly anything we spend on. And what is exciting about the effort is that it facilitates access to just about anyone, anywhere in the world, to bring them on the platform. And what is special about the technology is that in 230 hours of conversation over the years, we have not been interrupted for more than 1 minute. That is the technology. We have no bad interruptions at all. As we reach this milestone, our commitment to the cause, that is contributing ideas to meeting the daunting urban challenge, we consider as demanding in the short run as climate challenge, remains as fresh as ever. And our belief in the instrument online interaction through the webinars remains intact. The effort in addressing the urban challenge, of course, cannot be one-dimensional and cannot be linear, and it is not. But as we are on the 100th episode of webinar series, I'm talking about the series itself. As we prepare to start a new phase, we need your ideas and your support and your engagement, your contribution, and we expect you to be there all the time. I must also tell you reasons why this meeting at this juncture. And there are two good reasons. One, INHAF and its partners, the Urban Land in Ahmedabad and Sustainability Initiative and Nagrik Chetna Manch in Pune, have been studying working of BRTS in these two cities for the past few years. INHAF has recently published those two reports through public events in Ahmedabad and Pune. These are bottom-up studies looking at the system and the service from the viewpoint of the users and other citizens. That work has made us extra sensitive stakeholders, not only to BRTS and the bus system, but also to the overall context of public transport. The second reason that prompted and gave us topicality to these meetings is what happened on 6th of this month in Pune. The PMC Pune-Nagar corridor of BRTS system was dismantled. Citizens and civil society organizations reacted promptly for and against. We at INHAF, who received phone calls from citizens in Ahmedabad, felt that whatever the merit of the case And whatever are the circumstances, the act of demolition gave wrong signals, not only to the Pune city and citizens, but also to other cities where BRTS is running and where BRTS is being planned. There is little public debate on the public transport, the life of our cities, and a key element of city infrastructure. If we want our cities to be efficient, productive, mobile, healthy, people friendly, environmentally safe, and sustainable. The recent COP28 in Dubai has given scary signals if we do not equip our cities to meet the climate challenge. We thought this to be a good opportunity to discuss not so much the incident, but public transport in our cities, and within that, the role of BRTS and the bus. BRTS system is under stress and scanner in many cities with declining fortune as a running thread, and that makes this dialogue very imminent and necessary. Before I hand this over, after a longish introduction to Abhijit ji, let me take this opportunity to thank other agencies who agreed to co-organize these webinars, and I'm thankful to CEE, Parisar, and the Urban Lab for co-hosting this webinar. Thank you very much, Abhijit ji. Now is yours till it ends.
Thank you, Kirtiji. And I must thank you for inviting me to be a moderator. And truly your passion, dedication is remarkable. And I have seen over the last few days how you have reached out to so many people. And not one day, but 2 days of discussions, deliberations on buses. And I'm very happy to be here. And a lot of friends here, a lot of seniors, people with whom I have learned, a lot of colleagues. And it is wonderful to have you here. I know some of you, I don't know some of you who are going to speak today. And it'll be really nice and pleasure to hear your views on public transport. So the way I see this session going today is the primary reason is BRTS and what is happening in Pune. But I want to expand the discussion more to buses, public transport, buses, and the importance of buses, and why, as people interested in our cities, we need to focus on buses, right? And all of you have had different experiences in your career so far. And I would really like to hear, and everybody would like to hear your opinions, your thoughts on how we can make our cities better through having more and more buses. And I know I'm taking a strong position. I'm welcome. I mean, you're welcome to contradict or say something that you don't agree with. But before I start, I just want to quickly share a couple of slides on why buses in our cities and what's the importance. I hope the screen is visible. Okay.
Yes,
So
yes.
why are buses important for our cities? A few numbers. I know that we are building a lot of metros, and in the last 10 years, investment in metros has really accelerated. Good. If we have the money, we should build more and more metros. That's nice. But even in cities which have very good metro systems, and you can see that these are kind of the top cities as far as metros are concerned, Singapore, Hong Kong, London. In all those cities, out of the total public transport share, you can see that the bus still carries more number of people than metro. Even in Hong Kong, even in London, I don't have the number for Delhi, but even in Delhi, the DTC and the buses carry more number of people than the metro. Buses are important for our cities, even if you build metros. If you look at the number of buses that we want per lakh population, our cities are nowhere near what global cities are. And the cities that you see here have excellent metro systems. Hong Kong has a really good system. It has about 143 buses per lakh population. Bangalore is amongst the better cities in India as far as number of buses is concerned, but that is still 51. And for those of you who are familiar with Bangalore, you will know that Bangalore's traffic is notorious and many of the times buses are stuck with other traffic. So it doesn't make a lot of difference if you have a lot of buses, is good. But if the buses are stuck in traffic, you're back to square one. Because increasingly people want to shift towards more comfortable, fast modes of transport. And if the buses are stuck, they're going to look at something else. The last slide. The ridership on our buses is declining. In all the cities, over the last 10 years, the number of the ridership has gone down. So with this context about buses, let's start discussing, debating about what can we do to make buses the primary mode of public transport in our cities. And I would like to start with Professor Geetam Tiwari. Good evening, ma'am.
Yes, good evening, Abhijit.
Yeah, nice to have you here,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yes.
And, just a small personal anecdote. My entry into transport happened because of Professor Geetam Tiwari long ago, when I first heard her speaking about the high capacity bus system in Delhi. This, I think, is 2003, 2004.
Yes.
Right? So, ma'am, you have been involved with the BRTS in Delhi. And then, unfortunately, Delhi system was dismantled a few years later. And now we have Pune system, which also at least one road has been dismantled. In your opinion, what could have been done to prevent this dismantling? From an academic and also from a practitioner's point of view, because you were involved in some way in the design along with other firms. And what are the learnings from these cities that we can take on?
So, yes, thank you, Abhijit. And also thanks, Kirti, for organizing this session. I heard yesterday's session also, wonderful discussions. So I really want to start with, something that you started, Abhijit, that this discussion should be about bus systems, public transport systems, and suitability of buses in Indian cities context. So you showed some very useful, important numbers. And the other analysis that we have been doing, which we started doing long back, but very recently also we put together a report on, the report is available on InfraVision Foundation website. How should we understand the suitability of different types of system? And the discussion starts with understanding what kind of demand exists in Indian cities. Demand in the sense that we have mixed land use patterns in most cities. Densities are high, and therefore we find that the majority of the trips, majority meaning almost 60-70% trips are less than 10 kilometers in length. And if we check the suitability for buses, the trips between, let's say, 3 kilometers to 10 kilometers are ideal for buses, because a metro will take longer time because of access and egress involved, and shorter trips, other modes would be suitable. So this already forms about 35 to 40% chunk. This is for Indian cities analysis. Now, the numbers you showed for London and Hong Kong, there also we find a very similar distribution. And that is one of the prime reasons that we have higher ridership on buses. Now, what's happened in India, that even when we have made metros, everybody knows the numbers, that even for Delhi Metro, where we have 400 kilometers of network now, the ridership is only 46%. So first understanding is, our cities and cities in general are designed, at least 30 to 40% trips have to be served by buses. Even if we make extensive metro networks, these trips are not suitable because the lengths are short. Metro is a very good system for longer trips, longer than 10-15 kilometers. And that's what we keep seeing when we start making the metros. Actual ridership This is one of the prime reasons. So the context of that is very important. Now to come back to just directly answer your question that what was learning from Delhi system. So in Delhi system, we started by understanding that already Delhi had 625 bus routes and very high ridership on buses. However, the quality of service was poor, unreliable, oftentimes crowded buses, and people could not, you go to the stop and there is bus bunching and platooning happening. So the first prime motivation was upgrade the existing bus service. It was not about introducing a new system. And upgradation means that you take out segments where it is getting stuck in congestion, where there is road space, give it an exclusive right of way. And from the beginning, it was conceived to be a hybrid or open system, which is what we find have started happening in other cities. Ahmedabad, yesterday, Professor Swami was discussing, is also becoming open system and hybrid system. Surat is already a hybrid system, a successful system. That was the understanding that we already had in Delhi system. So what was the problem? Number one, there was the segment which was actually said that this is a BRTS system or a high capacity bus system was too short, 5 kilometers. It's not even a full corridor. Within that 5 kilometers, a small stretch, one segment, extremely high traffic volume, was a problematic segment, and alternate solutions were required for that. However, I think in the media and in the other public stakeholders, we were too impatient. We could not even complete that 12-kilometer stretch to get a complete understanding. And so my learning from that is really, which goes for Pune system also, because one point everybody seems to agree, buses are important, public transport is important. There is no two thoughts about it. If the current system, you are facing problems, whatever it may be, let's find solutions. Dismantling is no solution. As designers, we can come up with 5 different solutions to solve that problem. And these are new systems in the sense that moving bus to central lane is a new concept. Everybody will take some time to understand. But only based on anecdotal experiences. And oftentimes, actually, I was very surprised that, person from Nagrik Chetna Manch yesterday raised fundamental questions which we thought had been resolved. Why buses have to be in the center, how people cross the road. These, any experts, I'm so happy to see so many experts actually explaining it correctly. So those things are solvable. So my learning from that is that if we already have consensus that buses are important, we have to upgrade bus systems. Step by step, we have to move towards it, whether it means something that Professor Swami talked yesterday, and I like that idea, that let us start with the central bus stop designs and slowly introduce the segregation where the problems are.
Right.
So I think slow experimentation, but instead of dismantling, look for solutions we can bring back. And the last thing I want to share with this audience is that in 2013, 2012, there was a public interest litigation against Delhi bus system. And after listening to all the arguments and looking at the data, fresh surveys were done. The court was very strongly in favor of BRTS.
Yeah.
The court said, we can understand and we can see that in future, we will not have many choices. The way vehicles are growing and we are facing other problems, every road will have to be designed like this. Because the corridor gives you a safe passage for emergency vehicles. Ambulance don't get stuck in traffic congestion. Any other emergency vehicles, fire tenders. So I think that's the concept we have to package. We have to explain it to the policymakers and all stakeholders, users, that certain pain points are there. Let's resolve it instead of dismantling, because that is no solution.
Yeah.
That is going back to 30 years. So I will stop here and let's hear from other people.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, ma'am, just a follow-up question, because what I understand in Delhi and also in Pune is the public perception about BRTS is that it is not desirable, it is a failure. Even when I talk to friends in Pune, nobody really understands what this is all about. They only know what the media writes and what is in the newspapers. And I know that it has been quite negative in Pune. Now, how do we actually engage with the media so that, the perception around BRTS
Yeah.
itself can
I
be
mean,
changed?
if the media is honest, because yesterday Pranjali started with her presentation showing the users' perception survey.
Yeah.
And those survey responses were very positive. Actually, if you just look at her numbers, that many, especially the bus users, are extremely happy with it. Similar surveys we had found, which was done by Center for Science and Environment in
Yeah,
Delhi.
in Delhi.
Same things. NDTV survey had showed that how happy the bus drivers and the bus users are. So your question that how do we engage with media, I'm not very sure how honest the media is in portraying the correct information.
Mhm.
So should we resolve to other methods of, communicating this?
Maybe.
Do we need different communication methods, social media, or, we have to just think differently now? Because
Understood.
if sometimes if media has decided that we will have a negative reporting on this, I don't know if experts can do anything about it.
Got it.
But how, and the point is this, you are making a BRTS system to benefit the buses. We should not, and every time if you start saying by doing the bus system, the cars lanes are facing congestion. But what was your objective? Objective was to take the buses out of congestion.
Right.
It is not possible that you have no congestion for any vehicle. That is completely counterintuitive and it's unscientific.
Agreed.
So these are some difficult concepts,
Yeah.
and there will always be different perceptions between car users and bus users, people who benefit and people who do not benefit. And we'll have to see how we bring the balance. And for media question, I think we have to look for other options. Just
Got that.
going for print and electronic media may not be enough.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Professor. We'll move on to Vandana ji. Vandana ji is the MP from Pune. Ma'am, are you there?
Yes, yes, and very much. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And I have not met Vandana ji earlier. I had talked to Pranjali yesterday, and she had a lot of good things to say about how you have always
Thank you.
been eager, or kind of understood the problem, and then even asked questions in your capacity as an MP from Pune. So my question to you, Vandana ji, is as a politician, uh, how do you see this dismantling of the BRTS? Could it have been avoided in some way? Could something else have been done, as Geetam ji just said? The win-win, how can we create a win-win situation for all? How can we prevent dismantling by giving alternative solutions? Any thoughts, any views on that?
Um, First of all, let me thank INHAF, CE, Parisar, and Urban Lab for having organized this dialogue. I think it's very important that experts from various fields and various stakeholders come on a common platform to discuss what are the issues that cities face. We all know cities are growing at a very, very fast pace. Neither the administration is able to cope up with that kind of development that is happening, and the development has to be seen from the lens of sustainability. And I think public transportation is one of the major issues, because we all know that public transportation contributes to 14% of GHG. So basically, this is something that we all need to be very serious about. I remember meeting Geetam Tiwari ji in Pune, because that's when we were, lot of us corporate. I was a corporate for 15 years at the municipal corporation. So we were very worried as to why is the route happening in the middle of the road. And it was Geetam Tiwari ji and some of our colleagues from IIT who had come to tell us why it's happening. And we were an enthusiastic group of corporators who wanted to get involved in what's happening in the city. We are not experts, but we definitely want to get inputs from experts like all of you. One thing I feel which is missing, like Geetam ji rightly said, that we have to involve policymakers, stakeholders, riders, the media. I think one very important vertical that we always miss is the elected representatives. Unfortunately, when the municipal commissioner who takes these decisions or the concerned PMPML, like in Pune, looks into these issues, a lot of times they take consultations from several experts and NGOs. We all know that officers are there only for 3 years max. And after that, when they leave the city, everything is left high and dry. So, as elected representatives, honestly, we really don't know what is the dialogue that happens between the elected representatives and the NGOs or the experts and the officers concerned. I think that's a major vacuum there. Um, it's only when there is a SOS situation or when you need, people like us to advocate for a certain cause. And when you know that we believe in BRTS, that people start approaching us. I think that's a concept which we need to change from day one. Sanskriti is smiling because I keep telling her this, that whenever any policy decision is being taken, you all are the experts. We are not experts. We want something good to happen to our city, but it's only when you give us inputs can we, and we feel that, of course, public transportation has to be good, how it should happen, but we are not equipped with the right information or information which really would enable us to put it out very strongly. Now, I myself have been reading a lot about climate change and how does every city bring down its carbon emissions. So I had taken that line that if we have to bring down our carbon emissions, our city, Pune, for your information, was the first city in India which made its carbon inventory. And I really pushed the municipal corporation to do it. No other city had done that. So basically, when we talk about this thing, we are laymen after all. So if we can get inputs from experts like you all, I think that's very, very important. I do have contact with Sanskriti and Jugal Rathee ji and Kirti ji, Anagha. So we keep having this dialogue. But all said and done, it's me who has that dialogue. I would like more and more elected representatives to be involved in this, because ultimately they are the ones who take decisions. They are the ones who should know what is the best for the city, and not only what is the best for the city, what is right for the city. That's very important. I remember an incident when we had the BRTS. Those of you who know Pune, from Swargate to Katraj, and that BRT, every day there used to be some accident and resulted in several deaths of people. Now, why was that happening? Because people were jumping over the railing and crossing the road when the BRT bus was coming. Now, a simple observation that I had, that the barricades had a design which had horizontal bars. So people could jump over that bar and get into the lane. So when I went for a meeting of the corporators, I heard, it was just luck that I went there. And some of my colleagues were talking about dismantling the BRT. It was then that they thought about dismantling the BRC. Why? Because there were so many deaths and accidents happening. So that's when I told them, look at the design. We have horizontal bars. That's how they're jumping over the BRT barricade. So simple thing that we need to have vertical bars. Immediately they had to change the entire design. They had vertical bars and there was no other accident ever after that. So these are simple things which I think policymakers need to be involved. When NGOs and experts are involved by the municipal commissioner, it's great. We welcome it. But ultimately, I think even at that stage, if elected representatives are also involved in understanding issues, I think it'll be a better thing to do. My last point, which I would like to make here, is that a lot of our officers, a lot of our elected representatives at the local level do not know about climate change. They do not know what are the aspects that we need to look into to reduce our carbon footprint, our GHGs. And if we have made an inventory, if we are working towards reducing our carbon footprint for the city, What are the different things that we need to do now? If you ask the municipal corporators, how many of you know that there is a report in that direction? How many of you know that we need to do this? They are absolutely open to get inputs from experts. I have seen that myself. When I was the mayor of the city, I remember I had taken a workshop when I took them to Mahabaleshwar, and people, the media especially, hit out at me. Why does she want to take them to Mahabaleshwar? They will go horse riding and boat riding. But then it was my experience that if they went there, they would sit through the entire session and understand and learn how we need to look at the development of the city. And it was amazing to see that the 2 days, not even for a second they left the workshops. So this is something that they are wanting. They're thirsty, they're hungry to get information. But I think we have to find some way where we have some capacity building programs for elected representatives. Maharashtra has not had elections at the local self government for the last almost 1.5 years, more than 1.5 years. But I would make an appeal to all of you who are experts that if we could, after the election happens, if we could have workshops. Not, I know not everybody would come, but there are enthusiastic people in every batch who want to learn something, who would like to know something. SDGs, climate change, looking at sustainability issues, looking at what's the best way to reduce your carbon footprint, what's a good public transportation, why would you allow that you need to see that people wean away from private vehicles and get onto the public transport. In London, as we see, that there's a congestion tax, or for that matter, if there's a narrow lane, the car is not allowed, the bus is allowed, and people are allowed to walk on the footpaths. Footpaths are much bigger. So all these best practices which are happening world over need to be the corporators need to be exposed to these kind of initiatives and decisions which other cities have taken, just for them to understand that this is the future. And it's really very sad. I'm in Delhi, but when Kirti ji told me, and you know what's happening in Delhi, so I needn't say much. So when Kirti ji told me that the BRT has been dismantled, it's really very unfortunate. And in fact, it was the instance of two MLAs from Pune who said that there was too much traffic congestion. From day one, I was opposing it, but I think I was away, and they got the best time to have this happen. So I think we need to build capacities of elected representatives to understand what good public transportation system is, and how do we care about better air quality, better health for our citizens, and sustainability. So I think I'll stop at that. Thank you very much for having me in this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think this has been really very insightful. I think I'll just have two comments on this. One is for Kirti ji. So Kirti ji, we do have opportunities for a lot of engagement in Pune, where we could really, as Vandana ji said, in the next few months, we could engage with corporators, and that is something that INHAF can really take up. The other thing is for OP sir. Sir, आपको याद होगा, when we were doing this leaders program at CEPT, I think Vishal Bhai was also part of the one of the initial leaders program, and we had discussed about having this leaders program for the corporators also. As Vandana ji said, exposing them to best practices outside India, so that they can appreciate what other cities have done. I think we still should think about that, sir, very seriously, about how we can get the political stakeholders also trained in sustainable urban transport. Thanks, I think, for bringing it up, Vandana ji. Thank you very much. OP sir, we'll come to you now. And very nice to have you here with us, sir.
Thanks.
And those of you don't know, most of you would know it, but OP sir is the author of the NUTP, the National Urban Transport Policy. And then he was the one who really initiated the implementation of BRTS in India through the JNNURM. And many cities at that time had gone for road infrastructure projects, which OP sir had said, we'll give you money, provided the widened portion is given for buses. And that is how he pushed many cities to get BRTs. So, sir, would like you to share from your experiences as a bureaucrat, as an IS officer, later also with the World Bank, working around the world on sustainable urban transport. What can we do now to again reinvigorate the BRTS? Do we still have a chance? What can be done? Sir, over to you.
Thanks, Abhijit. Frankly, listening to the discussion so far, I don't know where to begin. But let me start by first endorsing what you said in the beginning about Kirtibhai's passion. I think your passion in getting to 100 of these and the way you have been talking to people, persuading them to join, I think hats off to you. So I think fully endorse your comment about Kirtibhai's passion. Geetam for me has been a teacher, and if it wasn't for her, I would have never got my PhD. It's really her persuasion, her cajoling, her threatening, whatever you call it. So Geetam for me is like one of the best teachers I've ever had. But listening to Vandana ji, everything that you said is music to my ears. Believe me, I have been fighting for this for a long time. I'm really happy that someone like you is saying this. You know, whole thing of building capacity of the political leadership to me is fundamental. In terms of, interacting with people, explaining what the BRT is, experts and bureaucrats are not the right people to do it. I think the right people is engaging with the political leadership and getting them to engage with the people and explain to people in their own language as why this is needed. We are not the right people for that. So absolutely essential. Just a little anecdote. When I used to be heading the training division in the government of India, I'd moved a proposal for capacity building of political representatives. And at that point, Mrs. Vasundhara Raje was my minister, and she was pretty supportive. I went to the Parliament, the Bureau of Parliamentary Studies, to find out what kind of capacity building of public representatives do they do. And they told me that they only train in parliamentary procedures, not in subjects. Unfortunately, I left, my term had got over and that didn't move ahead, but completely agree with you. And Abhijit, your suggestion about that leaders in urban transport planning being extended to the political leadership, absolutely great idea. I think the World Bank is reviving that program. We should still be doing that in India and sort of helping them out do that. Laghu is involved, and this is a suggestion, ma'am, we'll definitely take to them. So absolutely brilliant, music to my ears, as you say it. Coming back to the question that you, Abhijit, one more remark that you made, which I would like to again fully endorse. You expanded the discussion from BRTS to buses. And I think that's the way it should be. Let's not get lost between technologies. You know, this whole thing about the tussle between the bus and the metro, to me, a bigger common enemy is the personal vehicle. You know, road widening, building underground, subways and overpasses, this is the bigger enemy. You know, between buses and metros, if we start getting into the conflict, someone else is going away with this. And again, let me give an anecdote. I won't mention names, but about 10 years ago, a committee was set up for decongestion of transport in Delhi. Decongestion of Delhi. The committee was headed by the then secretary in the Ministry of Urban Development. I somehow happened to be part of that group. And at one of the meetings, the secretary says, okay, who all are present? Delhi Metro is here. Okay, good. PWD is here. Okay, good. Railways is here. Okay, good. Someone said, Chairman DTC is also here. So he says, Acha, DTC, unka kya role hai? This is coming from a secretary to the government of India. When he says, unka kya role hai? Then I was shocked. But fortunately, some other youngsters came in and said, they are the most important. He said, acha, theek hai. You know, if this is what is happening at the top level, people like that, they are not educated enough to be dealing with these kind of a subject. So these are some anecdotes I want to give. But let's focus on how do you get buses back on shape. And if you get buses back on shape, BRT will also come on as part of that. So I like your idea of expanding the discussion to buses. Now, what is the problem with buses? You showed data on how the ridership on buses is more than on metros. That's absolutely correct. You also showed how things are declining. That's also absolutely correct. How do we correct this? What is the problem? How do we correct it? I think the problem is that the social image of buses is very poor. Over the years, the message that people have got is bus is the last resort of a person who can afford nothing else. That is the image of a bus. People I've seen at various conferences, people, programs on improving bus systems that I have been involved in organizing. After 2 days of the workshop, one of the participants says, but if I take a bus and go to meet a friend, he'll say, tu bus mein aaya? Now, that's the image we need to correct, right? Now, the way to correct that image, to my mind, is don't look at the bus as the same 12-meter or 15-meter thing on 4 wheels. Geetam mentioned earlier about making the bus system much better. I think that is something we need to do. Qualitative improvement in bus services, not only in the quality in the operation, but quality in the appeal and the attractiveness of the bus. Now, that would mean a higher cost. And the moment you get into a higher cost, it means an affordability issue is compromised. So the whole thing about improving buses is really a balancing of affordability with quality. How do we balance that? There could be multiple ways. Rail systems have a first class and a second class. Can we think of buses as premium bus services and normal bus services? Now, the premium bus services can charge 4 times, 5 times the fare. You don't have to give a subsidy. No public subsidy is needed. Whereas you have a subsidized service for people who can't afford the big thing. Now, this is not something we are doing in India. Some cities have got a premium bus service charging, say, 20% more or 50% more. That's not enough. I think you charge 5 times more. People can afford a shared Ola, shared Uber. Why is it that we are not attracting them into buses? So that is one suggestion I would like to make. Think about a premium bus service in all the cities at a fare which is much higher than the normal bus service, number one. The second thing we must remember is one of the reasons why the bus systems lost out was that in the JNNURM, you did have scope for bus systems to be financed. So the Ahmedabad BRT was funded under the JNNURM. The Indore BRT, the Vizag, Visakhapatnam, Bhopal, Jaipur, all of them were funded under the JNNURM. Delhi was not. Delhi was on its own. Metro systems have always been outside the JNNURM. So after the JNNURM, when the Smart Cities mission came, the Smart Cities mission has no provision for transport really. Because what it says is the local area, there are 2 PANs, PAN City program and the local component to the Smart Cities. The local component had all these projects. The PAN City, there was some instruction which said PAN City with all the IT-based initiatives. So that completely ruled out public transport systems being funded under the Smart Cities mission. Metros continued because they were always outside the JNNURM or the Smart Cities. So I think what is important is whenever any new program comes in place of the Smart Cities, which I hope it will after the elections, it's very important that transport finds place in that scheme, is not left out. I don't think the political vision was to leave out transport. I think this happened more as a bureaucratic exercise at the detailing stage. That's where things went wrong, but I hope that gets corrected. Now, the second thing, again, I wanted to mention, when you come down to the BRTS itself, construction of the BRTS is a nightmare. It's far more difficult than constructing a metro. Because in a metro, at the station area, you are interfacing with people. But between stations, you're going up or going down. With the BRTS, you are interfacing with people. You are interfacing with car users who are influential people. Their voice may not be large in number, but it's large in volume. Now, this is what was the problem Delhi faced. This is also the problem that Pune faced. The influential group of people were adversely impacted. And I think that is where use of political representatives to correct that did not happen. So that is, I think, the other thing. The third thing I would like to say is, rather third or fourth, whatever, let's not copy something from another country and try to replicate it the way it's happening in that country. I think it's very important to learn the right things, but adapt it to our situation. You look at BRT systems, they have been very successful in Latin America, but really not as successful outside of Latin America. You have some stray examples, but really not very successful outside of Latin America. And there's a World Bank's publication called The Soft Side of BRT, which I would recommend people to read and see. It's not the engineering issues, but the software issues in BRT, which have not got recognized as much. And that's why. Now, what happens in Latin America is the BRT is helping move from a very poor bus system to an improved bus system. That transition is a lot easier. In countries like ours and many other countries, you're trying to use the BRT to get people to move from two-wheelers to buses. It's a very different ballgame. So in that kind of a situation, we should really try to adapt what it was and not just copy what Bogota did. So I think that's the other thing I would like to highlight. The next thing I would say is, there is a need for a certain degree of flexibility. If we are going to say that this is the design and this is the only design for the BRT, I think we are being inflexible. And that turns people off very often. Right? So this is something I would like to recommend, that don't be inflexible. Recognize your situation, be flexible to adapt to that situation, do the BRT according to that. I think it's much better. And again, I will repeat, what I mentioned earlier about Vandana ji's comments. Please involve the political leadership. They are much better at managing people, managing opinion than we can ever be. Let me stop with that. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks, OP sir. I think very insightful. Just to react to what you said in the end about let's be flexible. And I think one of the beauties about buses is that they are flexible, unlike a metro system, which in a way is a little inflexible in the construction.
Abhijit, let me correct you here, or let me get across more. I know for the BRT that there were certain standards which were laid down.
Yeah.
And those standards said gold standard, silver standard, bronze standard.
Yeah.
This came to me at the World Bank when I was there looking for the World Bank's endorsement of these standards. And a very simple request I had made was, don't make it gold, silver, and bronze, because that has a connotation of quality.
Yeah.
Call it a high capacity, medium capacity, lower capacity. I would be very happy to recommend that the World Bank endorses. They were not willing to make that change.
Oh.
And I know situations where the Ahmedabad BRT, which got the Sustainable Cities Award, Global Sustainable Cities Award, at some other workshop was told you're not even bronze standard because you don't meet these specifications. This is what I'm referring to, lack of flexibility.
Agreed. And that's exactly what I'm saying, that BRT, the bus itself can be very flexible. So let's, and that is the advantage, or that's the opportunity that we have with buses, that we can adapt it to any situation. Right. Thank you so much, sir, for your comments. And we'll move on. We'll move on to Shri Jugal Rathee. Rathee ji, aap hai? Can we have you?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So thank you so much, sir, for being with us today. And
Yes.
so I know you have heard of you as somebody who is very passionate about the civic society, the role that you can play, the advocacy that you do for safe, affordable, comfortable public transport in Pune. And so my question to you is related to the specific role that you play. What role can the government play to make buses and traveling by buses more comfortable, affordable for the common person? And what role can you as civic society play? And how can we get these two sides together to create a situation where the bus wins, people win, everybody wins? Yeah, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. My regards to Kirti ji. To start with, at the age of 81, the way he is pursuing the public cause It's commendable. Hope we all come to that stage someday. I'm not very far from that. I'm 76, so I'm trying to follow some of these good things. Like that's one. So quite a few people here are acquainted with me. Province Pardeshi deputed me for some workshop at Delhi. I met Geetam ji there. Then Rajendra Jagtap sir, I worked together with him. Vandana ji, of course, was our supporter. She participated in our some of the demonstration, protest rallies, and all that. So I'm very happy that such type of the webinar is organized, and particularly congratulations to Kirti ji, yourself, and the whole team for attaining 100th consecutive the webinar in the series. I also run some NGO Sajag Nagrik Manch, and of that activities PMP Pravasi Manch. I know how difficult it is to continue the things, and thanks a lot, salute for that. Now coming back to the subject, I was to inform, as you rightly narrated here, that wider about the bus system, what government can do, and what a civic society like that I can do that. Just excuse me.
Jugal Rathee is also a very active cyclist. So and a runner.
I'm extremely sorry. Extremely sorry. I'm here for some. Should I continue?
So we got to know two more of your qualities. Sanskriti just mentioned that you cycle, and you
sorry.
also very active. Sanskriti runner, right?
Okay. Now regarding bus systems, right? The number it is what government can do. Maybe you are aware that there were 21 chairman, managing director, leaders of the PMPML were changed in the tenure of 16 years. 2007 PMPML was formed, and by now there are 21st CMDs there. So government should see that a efficient person continues in a job. Rather, experience of the commuters and the citizens at large is other way around. That if somebody is working efficiently, putting it assertive foot down, then particularly disciplining the administration as well the private operators in the bus system who are working, then probably they are quickly transferred. So that shouldn't happen. Last Sachin Pratap Singh was there. Within 3 months he was transferred. Shrikar Pardeshi was there. Subbarao Patil was there. Tukaram Munde was there. See, people tried to do that, and citizens were looking with the hope towards that. But that was done. So he should get the full term, the efficient, proper, experienced, and who can deliver. The leader should be deputed for the PMPML. That is the first one I would like to say government can do. Then other things, the priorities, of course, that has to be there. You see, total approach of the city. So government includes the PMC, the founder of that, as well as the PMPL, who is the operator, right? Approach is vehicle oriented, as OP Saab also was saying, and Vandana ji was also saying. Everything supporting the private vehicles, providing more and more facilities and convenience to private vehicles, and wonder if there is a fire, you can't put the fuel in the fire and see that the fire settles down. So that cannot happen. You are providing more facilities, and there is a world. I think Geetam ji will watch me. For the more the facilities, more the number of vehicles, and more the number of vehicles, more the problem is going to be there. So one have to be assertive. The priorities has to be given. Assertiveness has to be there, and vehicle and the speed only cannot be considered. The quality of life, the commuter-centric planning, and quality of life of the people at large, and particularly lower and middle class, that cannot be ignored. That should be given priority, and there are ways of doing that. I am not going in details for that. That government, second thing has to be seen, that the approach has to be commuter centric and moving the people, not the, as I am not academician, but what I have learned from these people, that moving the people from A to B, not the vehicles there. That planning has to change the approach for that. Sustainable public transport, as has been said, CMDs have told to do that. Then the inclusive participation of the main stakeholders. Now, commuters or anybody relating to that is not, has a no say in the working or the decisions or the process of the public transport, including the PMPML. So-called PMPML is around 75 lakhs citizens they are catering to PMRD area, and then none of the commuter. Earlier there used to be some Grahak Pratinidhi on the RTA, Regional Transport Authority. That has been suspended now 8 years. There is nobody in that. So that say also has to reach to the management level for that. And then funding has to come not only for the local self-government but also from the state government. And in case of JNU RMI, OPA sir was very much saying that about flexibility. I faced that issue. I raised the ITI on that, and then they said that there was a flexible clause, last one, but the tender was objective to aimed at particular supplier or something like that. That could be done. So flexibility, of course, has to be there. Funding has to come there, and you have to integrate with other modes. I'm not saying about the metro. I'm not saying about the automobile. I'm saying about the NMT, non-motorized transport, be it cycling, be it pedestrians, because they are the main, not only stakeholders, but that will also decide the congestion, what takes place there, and how there is a more nodal shift to the bus system. So that has to integrate in that particular thing. These are basic expectations from the government level. And of course, least said is better for the good governance. Primarily, where you fail is that we have been advocating for the efficient, economic, safe and reliable bus service. Many reliability is very, they go for the fancy ideas of task force, all India task force of the transport. There was task force, their survey was conducted, which data is already existing there with them, which we have given in abundance. More than 50,000 complaints and suggestions are lying with them, were given by the Pravasi Manch activists, and there are a lot of missions we carried out. I'm not going into those details. Even university chancellor said in the interview, if I'm given the assurance that I will get the bus to commute from one place to another, then I would give up my vehicles. I would not necessarily use my vehicle itself. Even that was not done, only the survey was done, and that was, I think, tabled or filed or something like that. So that role the government has to include the commuters. They give the funding, as well as it has to be commuter centric, quality of life centric, not the vehicle or the speed centric. That is one aspect of it. What society can do. And let me give a comment on what OP sir was telling about the premium flexibility in the fare structure or something like premium and all that. I've been insisting. I remember the way back when the bus was costing around 23 lakhs, 27 lakhs or something like that. Now we are gone to 2 crores bus. AC bus, electric bus, 2 crores bus, and other buses also are quite common. So more than 10 times the cost has, the capital cost is involved in less than, I think, 10 years or 12 years or something like that. So that finally the burden comes to common user. Lower class, middle class, the ayahs and ward boys and the office goers and salaried people and all that. So I was advocating, I was insisting, have a separate division for that. Have the separate account maintained for that. And let that be feasible for themselves. Not because the loss is transferred to the common person. And that's why the Pune fact is that even if I have to travel 200 meters, I pay 10 rupees bus fare. 200 meters, 10 rupees. They have fancy system as the state system. When the technology was not there, I appreciate. You can't have that many permutation, combination, routes and buses and the stages and all that. But now being digital, you say 2 kilometers, 5 rupees, at least you should give that 2 kilometers. Pay as you. Why Ola Uber the people prefer for that? Available convenience as well the reasonable and the transparent is there. But here it is not there. So likewise, give that. So have two separate cells or divisions or companies or whatever form of organization you decide, and let them take their own burdens, and not mix up together like. So then this will never improve. If that is done, and we have been insisting for that, we have given some 5 important points, low hanging fruits as it said. Simple things. They don't have the ITMS system working. Why BRT is failing? Somebody, he was saying that not only looks, but the way it is operated, basic things are not there. The automated doors of the bus and bus stations are not working. Right? They say, no, we don't have uninterrupted power supply, we don't have money. Why did you start that? People out, seeing outside and they're carrying the risk of their life and things like. Derailers are docking at level. That is also missing. So many things are not there. So nothing, you borrow the ideas from the abroad and you don't comply with the preconditions, but then you want everything that to be done. And still they are pouring in the money, thousands of crores, hundreds of crores in that. So that cannot be there. So it has to be separate. That is one I said. And finally, about what civil societies we have been doing. Pravasi Manch was formed in 2009. Provincia Pardeshi gave me one fatal accident of a small girl crossing the road with parent, going to the school, came under the bus, and then she lost her life. Likewise, there were few things. I said, how come it can happen? Why you put big buses in the very crowded, congested, small, narrow roads? Then he said, okay, individual voice won't go. You go for some organization. And that probably stimulated me to form a PMP Pravasi Manch. And since then, we are working for that. We had a lot of mission we have done. How participation, though formally it is not there. We have promoted 100 at 100 mission. What was that? User of the bus, 100 of those should put one suggestion or complaint, whatever he have, to the PMPM helpline daily for 100 days. 100 volunteers self-using the buses, putting one suggestion to the PMPM helpline daily. 100 into 100, we had target of 10,000 suggestions, complaints, where that ended up with 14,000 in that particular period. So everything is of that sort. So that can be done. Making aware of the schemes, making aware of the, including what Vandana ji was saying in the outreach. It is not there. Our volunteers are doing. They are traveling in the bus. They will stand. They will make an announcement. And compliments only to this thing. I think it was in Rajendra Jagtap's the period, or little later than that. Pass rate fare structure in Pune is absolutely fantastic now. Tremendous. In 40 rupees, you can travel within the corporation anywhere, any number of time, and 50 and other things. Like for that also, we fought for 10 years. So that type of situation. Earlier, Sachin Pratap Singh, the structure is there, facility is there, but it is not made public. So when we insisted, the posters were put up in all buses and stops and all that. That added within 8 days, 16 lakhs per day more collection. Point is that our people also are doing. Outreaching, educating, making them aware of that, and at the same time, using pressure group as well as the media between basic commuters and the administration as such. That was the second. Volunteer, we volunteered ourselves at various stops and all that. RTI we have taken. I'm also NGO running a Sajjan agreement for right to information that can be very effectively utilized for this thing. The improvement and digging the information and representing to government and all that. Potential, I'm saying I have written some articles in that and with facts and figures that if the advertisement rates at the bus and bus shelters and all that, and the property rents, property owned by that, is properly updated with the market. would the market, I think more than half of the cost or loss, what they call it, yes, will be wiped out. So the basic approach has to be, it is not expenditure head. It's not a loss head. It is not for business. You now to see the financial viability is never in the world, that type of thing. It is investment like sewage hai, road cleaning hai, water ka hai. So is it, do you consider whether the expenditure or the what profit will get in, revenue will get it from that? No, it is like that. Roti kapda makan pe nahi reh gaya abhi wo. Then the commuting from one place to another is also equally important. Rather, it is a lifeline. PMPML, we are saying the lifeline. And I know for individual cases, it helps the better health. It helps better employment. It helps better education for the people who can't otherwise afford. I know of several such cases. Yesterday, Ramanath Jha was saying that technically, legally, it is not the responsibility of the municipal local self body and all that. I'm not that. I'm a hardcore user of the bus service. How do you give it? It is your problem. But it can be done. It can see Vargikaran bolte, you understand diversification of the budget. They find any Tom, Dick, Harry some excuse and they transfer the budget to that extent. Then when it is necessary, lifeline, basic thing for the commuters, for the citizens, cannot do it. Of course, I agree with Vandana ji. More the awareness and involvement of those should be there who are willing. We have already kept involving that. More so, it can be done. I think these are the few things I would have to pick. Finally, I would try to like to conclude how you look at it would make all the difference. Maybe it is much more optimistic or maybe overestimating part of it. किसी ने ठीक कहा है, नजर जो बदली नजारे बदल गए, नजर जो बदली नजारे बदल गए, कश्ती ने रुख मोड़ा किनारे बदल गए. So if you change your approach, people oriented, commuter oriented, and for the thing, see, one of my environment friend who is working in the he has given two caption which I keep reporting. Marathi में है, शायद सबको समझता है. निसर्ग स्नेही जीवन शैली. Your lifestyle has to be eco-friendly. Then that's why I'm saying use cycle. See, last 15 years, I have never used the fuel vehicle, private fuel vehicle. WBC, I call it, walk, bus, or cycle. So not for me, I'm saying. Anybody, find some slot, one day, no vehicle day, or some slot, or something like that. And that will promote. Whatever civil society can do that, educate the promote within the commuters and the citizens as well, and have a watchdog system on the operations of the bus also. I think that's what I would contribute. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Jugalji. I think very insightful. I'm amazed at you're bursting with ideas and you have so many things that you would like to do. Hats off to you for having that. Few things that I could take on. I mean, one obviously is along with the bus service, we also need to focus on non-motorized transport. I think it's very important point that you made.
Must.
Yeah, because this accessibility to buses, we need to focus on that. Right?
Somebody said why BRT was not working. There was no access.
Yeah.
Nagar Road, Waguli, you can't just cross and reach the bus station.
Yeah. And then the other point you made about continuity in administrators and decision makers.
Head, particularly
Absolutely.
head.
Absolutely. And there are a lot of resources I think that PMPML would have, as you pointed out, properties. And there is this entire concept about value capture.
Non-operating income, that's what they call it.
Non-fare box revenue. So there are a lot of opportunities for doing that. So I think these are excellent suggestions.
There are no vested interest in that, and you go with the market.
Yeah.
So I can give it in the bond that what PMP will lose will not be more than what PMC is presently contributing that. Even they make it free.
Got that.
Even they make it free.
Thank you so much. I think these are excellent insights that you have shared with everybody. And I think we can take some of these suggestions forward as we continue engaging.
Please excuse me, I have to go for one of our chartered accountants function there. Please.
Thank you so much for your thoughts.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you.
We'll move on and we will move to Vishal Khanama. Vishal Bhai.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And thank you so much for joining, I think, at a very short notice. And I think it is extremely important to hear from somebody who is actually running a bus system in Ahmedabad. And he has been doing it with a lot of passion and dedication for the last, I think, just before COVID. Kab se hai, Vishal bhai? Since when have you been managing?
2019. I joined
2019.
this BRTS department 2019.
So, lot of experience Vishal bhai has, 4 years of running bus systems in Ahmedabad. And now slowly we are moving towards integrating the AMTS and BRTS in Ahmedabad. And he is at the forefront of delivering that. So we would like to hear from you, Vishal bhai, about your thoughts, the ideas that you are implementing in Ahmedabad, and what lessons can other cities take from that. Over to you.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Abhijit. Thank you, Kirti Shah Sarji, for giving me the opportunity to speak on this forum, actually. And I would like to start with the brief introduction about Ahmedabad. Most of you know the Ahmedabad BRT, right? I am general manager and working as a deputy municipal commissioner in Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation, and I joined this department in 2019. And in 2019, we started with the first electrical buses in Ahmedabad city. Probably this was the first electrical bus in India itself, because in mid 2019, we have introduced these electrical buses. As rightly mentioned by earlier speakers regarding that, how you can improve the public transportation system into the city. But first of all, we need to understand that what the city require actually. If you look at the city, the understanding the demand of the cities, that is very much important. And as far as the Ahmedabad city is concerned, in Ahmedabad we are having two public transport authority. The one is an old system, that is the Ahmedabad Municipal Transport Service, is the old legacy system, which was started in 1947. And the BRT was started in 2009. Municipal Corporation has created a SPV in 2009 to operate this BRT, right? So these two entities are operating in their silos, right? And Abhijit has rightly mentioned that now we are in the process of integrating these two authority and make one system which will be helpful to the citizen at large. Now, apart from that, what other factors that any other cities need to focus while dealing with this public transport system? So earlier they mentioned that the Pune, the one corridor was removed, and I rightly mentioned by that it gives the wrong signal to the concern, because you can't solve the purpose with the bridges and the more bridges and more vehicles. So you need a better public transport system in the city. You can take an example of Ahmedabad city, where we have a dedicated 89-kilometer corridor. But we have started this corridor with the prototype in 2009. We have started with the RTO to Pirana, that is 13-kilometer corridor. And we involved the political people at that time. Involvement of political people is very much important, because only administrator can't do the things in a right manner. So rightly mentioned that the capacity building of elected people is very much important. So considering that parameter, we always involve our councillors, we always involve our political representative in our decision making process, so that you can have a clear-cut vision regarding how it will be implemented on the field. So in talking about that scenario, in 2009, we have introduced we helped the political people, and they also traveled in the same bus. We involved the religious people also, we involved the business fraternity also, and all other parameters that we focus on that. And if you involve more and more stakeholders into that, then you can create such a good system into the city. So basically, as mentioned, that if you provide a good public transport system, then people will move to your public transport system. And if you mention the public transport share in Ahmedabad city, we are only having a 9 or almost 10% public transport share, which is very less. as mentioned, that public transport share is very less. But what are the factors that we need to focus? You have a corridor, you have a AC buses, you have a ITMS, you have all the parameters. But what are the factors that Ahmedabad needs to focus in coming future? So as mentioned on OP sir, there is a reliability, safety, and affordability. So these three parameters are very much important. So everybody talking about this parameter, but implementing on the ground is very much important. So how you provide your reliability to your traveler, that is very much important. The last mile connectivity that Rathee sir has mentioned, that integration with NMTs. So it's not like that you just connect the nodes and you have a better public transport share, but you should provide the last mile connectivity with this NMT or any other modes. In Ahmedabad, we are providing a last mile connectivity to the bicycle. So in Ahmedabad, we have Ahmedabike, and we have installed the cycle at 119 stations. So where you can have a cycle at nearby station, so you can take a cycle to reach your destination, and you just park your cycle nearby BRT station, and you can board into the BRTS bus for your commuting. But not this solution is also not that much lucrative. So for that, you need to have a single system. So if you provide a single system, a hassle-free travel to the commuters, that is very much important. Once you provide the hassle-free travel or a single ticket where you can have a liberty to just take a cycle and just left your cycle and you can board into the bus, then people will shift to this public transport system. So apart from that bicycle, we are also having a rickshaw system. So in that, you can have a last mile connectivity with the busiest commercial complex in Ahmedabad city. So in that way, you can generate a more last mile connectivity option into the existing BRTS corridor. And if you connect this undeveloped or developing more this housing areas to the BRT system, then your public transport share will improve. So that is one aspect. And the second is a hassle-free travel. Now the customer satisfaction is an old word actually. The customer delight is a new word actually. So I normally keep telling this word into different program. Customer delight means provide a hassle-free travel, because in BRTs we all are having AC buses, and our minimum fare is ₹5. So in ₹5, we are giving a AC service to the commuters. And not only the AC service, you need to focus on the hassle-free service. So how you can switch between the buses, that is more important. So in that context, now we are planning to integrate this AMTS and BRTS. So in AMTS, we are having a total 149 routes and approx 650 buses. And BRTS, we have 19 routes and 321 buses. So if you combine or if you integrate this two system, then people will have a option to switch between these two transport entities. Now, again, in that, you need to focus on the single ticket. If you have a single ticket option, then people will move to your public transport system. So we are now focusing on that part also. Apart from that, in Ahmedabad city, we are also having a metro. Metro is operational on approx 2 routes, approx 40 kilometers metro corridor are there. So in future, we are also planning to integrate our system with the metro, or rather you can say that we can also feed to the metro system. So in that, in city, you'll have a 3 system which will be combined. That is a metro, AMT and BRT. If you provide this better connectivity within this system, then your public transport share will improve from 9% to higher side. Ideally, it should be a 30 to 35% as far as the Ahmedabad city is concerned. So we are targeting that 35% to 40% public transport share in Ahmedabad city. And for that, we are focusing on how you can give a better service delivery to the commuters. So again, in the current perspective, customer delight perspective, we have introduced the Paytm facility. Now, our daily ridership is 2 lakh in BRTS. Out of that, 25,000 people are using Paytm option. So if you, it will reduce your paper roll cost. it will reduce your manpower cost. You just introduce the Paytm system. In this Paytm, you will have a BRT option. You just book your ticket from Paytm, just show your QR code to a validator. You can board into the buses. So 25,000 people are using Paytm facility. We are focusing on how we can provide the better mobile app to the commuter. So we are working on that, how we can give other options also. We are now opening our system to the other payment modes also. So in that way, you can have a variety of options where people can have a choice to book their ticket and they can board into the buses. So this kind of hassle-free or service we need to focus as a public transport authority. Apart from that, the involvement of a political people is also there. So in March, we conducted the international tour. So we included the political people to visit the London system. So that they can understand how the London is operating, how the different modes are connecting to each other. And if you provide the exposure to the political people, then they will understand what is your plan, how you are going to integrate. So that is very much important or aspect. Involve the political people or involve the electrical people to this process. Then design flexible is also again important parameter. You cannot copy paste any design or just paste it in your city. But you need to understand your city requirement, because in Ahmedabad, most of the people traveling from west to east. So depending upon your moving pattern, you can design your routes and you can design your you can design your depots also. And apart from that, for the better customer delivery, you need to focus on the customer complaint also. So in this, we are now focusing on, because we have introduced the 4 different modes by the people can complain. So we have started with the WhatsApp, we have started with the toll-free number. On the station, you can register your complaint. And we are focusing on the complaint resolvement system, because once the people is complaining, so you need to resolve that complaint. If you send the resolve message to the commuters, then he'll understand that now how further we can improve our services. So these are my views how we can improve our public transport system into the city. Thank you. I would like to stop over here. Any other questions?
Yeah, thank you, Vishal Bhai. I think this was very interesting. I particularly like the customer delight. Moving on from just satisfaction and going to delight.
Yeah. For that, we just introduced the USB charging in our BRT bus, because previously it was a 3-pin plug. So it's a small changes. It's small change, but now the commuters carry the USB cable. So if you just introduce the USB cable, he just enter USB cable. He works in AC buses, and this kind of service will definitely give you the better service delivery to the public, and people will appreciate this kind of service. Now,
I'm sure they're appreciating already all these initiatives that you're taking. Right? Yeah, sorry, just something.
Yeah, in fact, one thing I would like to also add into that, we have also conducted the survey in our public transport, because most of the people are now preferring the electrical buses. Because currently we are having 321 buses. Out of that, 200 electrical buses are there. And we conducted the survey and we found that most of the people prefer electrical buses because of the noise reduction, because of the comfort service, and because of the travel travel comfort in that electrical buses. So now the cities need to focus on that part also, because on one side you are talking about the GHG emissions and all of the parameter. So city should think on that electrical buses also. So that's my second thought. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I think that is something that Ahmedabad has been doing quite well in terms of introducing more and more electric buses. I think you're also looking at increasing the fleet size as you go along, right?
Yeah, definitely. We are now actually, we have currently floated the tender for the electrical buses also, and we are now planning to increase our fleet size also, because looking at the city population, we need to focus on that part also.
Great. Thanks so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Vishal. It was really interesting to hear about Ahmedabad. Moving on from Vishal Bhai, I would like to get Rutul in on the discussion. Thanks, Rutul, for being so patient. So Rutul and I go back a long way. We started working on the BRT project in Ahmedabad a long time back. And we have worked together on many other projects, research, academics. Rutul, what I want to get from you is, yeah, we will talk about public transport, but providing public transport is only half the story. What
Right.
else do we need to do to get people onto public transport? Because we are seeing increasingly that in spite of great metro systems and in spite of increasing buses, the public transport share is still not increasing the way we would like it. Somewhere we are failing the bus system. So what can we do now? What are the low-hanging fruits that we could get to increase the ride share on buses? Over to you, Ritu.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Abhijit. And thank you, Kirti ji, for making me part of this very good gathering. I have a small presentation more as a provocation. Uh, uh, and I think it's also the time in the webinar where we need to show some visual. And so I thought that maybe I'll just put together a very quick presentation more to sort of get reactions from people. But I think if we want to really talk about sustainable mobility in India, what we also need to talk about is automobiles. And this slide is particularly just to prank the moderator because he wants us to talk about buses. Let's talk about automobiles. But jokes apart, there was this article in 2020 in Swaraj magazine. I do not endorse or recommend anybody reading the magazine, but it is more about just to think of the other side and how people are thinking about this. That why should we become a car country? There was an article like that, and in whatever twisted logic that they gave a logic of why we need to increase the number of cars in India, why we need 100 more cities in India, etc., etc. To give credit to them, they also printed a counterpoint a few days later to say that why India should not become a car country. And I think in our public transport debate, it's very important that we bring in this element that if we are not going to become a public transport country, our cities are not going to become public transport friendly, then are we going to become a very automobile friendly kind of, are we going to design those kind of cities? Are we going to design those kind of neighborhoods? Are we going to design those kind of streets? What do these car countries look like? And I think many of our relatives, when they go to Dubai and other places, they often confuse development with a certain kind of development. And actually American model sort of constantly remind us that what car countries look like, that your CBD in the center, you have a very, very low density suburbs, and in between you have connected this kind of super highways on which you travel almost for an hour at 50-60 kilometers per hour on an average speed, and then you reach your destination and you get cities like this. Okay, the question is, do we want to convert our Ahmedabad and Pune and Hyderabad into cities like this, or do we have another option? And I think that's a sort of a longish answer to Abhijit's question as well. We have already started making cities like this, which are very automobile friendly. And automobile friendly, what I mean by that, there is also another term called automobile dependent. If you live in some part of the cities, and if you don't have a car or even a two-wheeler, then you don't really feel as if you're part of the city, because this city and these areas are not really designed for any other mobility. Okay, and I think what I'm hinting at is that in India, we have normalized a lot of these new areas, new upcoming areas in various cities. I mean, imagine crossing this road. Imagine, I mean, it's don't imagine. I mean, it's a challenge. Cross this road. Do we really want to make cities like this? And if you go to a lot of our cities, their peripheral areas which are adjoining the highways, you will find this. I mean, it sort of breaks my heart to see an old lady telling a rickshaw driver in Ahmedabad, who on a wide road like this, to say that, drop me on the other side of the road, I'll give you 20 rupees. Just to cross a road, she has to take an auto rickshaw. Right? And I mean, American cities, we have seen this where almost human beings are invisible. And then you have a low density kind of development. Look at the amount of parking space available for cars. Is this what we imagine as our future cities? And I think that's a question that we really need to ask in all of our cities, because everywhere people are doing what is called highway oriented development, the development which is fed by this kind of infrastructure. And the question is, do we really need this in our cities? And it's not only about transportation in the sense that it's a lifestyle system that we are promoting. And if you live in this kind of areas, you will definitely cannot survive without vehicles. And then once people get used to vehicles, then we want them to shift to public transport. And I think that is where the problem is in many cities. We have also normalized this kind of pictures in our cities, that crossing a road itself is a task, right? So let's also talk about automobiles and the way in which they have increased. Of course, the per capita income in India has risen in multifold. But Anumita from CSE has this very interesting statistics that between 1951 to 2006, we had 10 crore vehicles in the country. Between 2006 to 2016, we added another 10 crores. And if you look at some of the latest number between 2016 to now, we have added another 15 crore vehicles, okay, just in less than a decade. So what we see on the roads outside, it's of course, it's something that you can sort of relate to now, that the vehicles have been increasing in our cities in many fold. And with that, the congestion is increasing, something that we experience every day. And also the air pollution, even in Ahmedabad right now, in Ahmedabad, the AQI numbers in the area that I am sitting in, which we thought is unlike Delhi and any other places, is very unhealthy air. Right now, we have about 200 AQI even in Ahmedabad, right? And the question really is, are our cities really investing in infrastructure for promoting the use of automobiles? And the answer is unfortunate, yes. The Coastal Road project in Mumbai, which is very, very ironical. It's going to destroy the beauty of the city. It's going to kill the mangroves. It's going to displace people and bring in a lot of traffic in South Bombay, in the area where you have relatively less traffic, in a city where 80% of the people use public transport. Okay, and we have normalized projects like this as well. And I mean, I'm talking about this one project. It's a big symbol of what's happening in many other cities. But you go to Chennai, Bangalore, parts of Ahmedabad, you will find this, that new highway systems are being created, which are part of your urban system. I would actually differentiate between the way in which highways work between the cities and urban highways passing through the system, through the city system. And I think they're extremely problematic in terms of congestion, in terms of pollution, and also in terms of fatalities that we see. Most of the fatalities in our cities happen on many of these kind of urban highways. So the question that we also need to ask is that there has been tremendous growth in many of the Indian cities. 30-40% of urban area has been added. In Pune, Ahmedabad, Hyderabad, Chennai, wherever you go in Bangalore, 30-40% of the city's size has been expanded. The question that we need to ask, that is this area being served by public transport? Or we are waiting for all of these people, the newly coming urban population, to first buy a vehicle, get used to the lifestyle of vehicle driving, get into the political demand of getting more flyovers, and then we will sort of shift them to public transport. Okay, and I think that's why there is a very urgent need to really, sort of expand the public transport operation in our cities, not be limited to the metro rail system, but also bring in a sort of mass scale of buses. Another point I want to make is that in India, we have also seen that there are a lot of people who have moved out of poverty, almost in tune of 10 crore. The pandemic has not been very kind to them, but the very important aspect of moving out of poverty is also access to transport. And what we see is in many of the cities, wherever there are accessible locations, the prices of housing is very, very expensive. And whenever there are inaccessible locations, the prices are low. And we need to really work on this from the urban policy point of view. And if you ask me what is a single reason why in Indian cities you have so many two-wheelers, this is the reason. Because your small affordable housing, sort of wherever there is a mass housing being created far away from the city center, you don't have very good public transport system. That is why people are forced to buy two-wheelers, travel longer distances, and that is what is happening in Indian cities, and which actually this is what stop people from using public transport on one side, but also forcing poor people to actually live in slums, because slums provide them more accessible locations. So it's a larger question of housing policy and transport policy as well, right? And I'm not even using the word transit-oriented development so far, right? I mean, a lot of this is simply logical connection between housing and transport and making that connection. And whereas if you look at where our cities are spending in terms of their budgets, it's highly problematic. The question that we also need to ask is, who is in charge of transport planning in our cities? Actually, nobody. There is a traffic department in municipal corporation. There is RTO, there is traffic police. Whose problem is it? It's actually nobody's problem. And that's why you have a lot of ad hoc spending. Even if you buy 500 buses for in a particular city tomorrow, how are we going to ensure another 500 buses in 2 years and another 500 buses in another 2 years? And once this fleet is old enough to be replaced, we are going to buy, what is the business plan? And I think that's why we need to really ask this question about who is in charge, who is the budget, what is the mandate, and where is the plan? Okay. And I think that's where I would stop. I asked so many provocative questions. Just to summarize, I would like to say that, in the last 20 years of working in this particular sector, there is a story in Bible. It's a biblical story where, they're trying to make a Tower of Babel. Sustainable mobility to me is like building a Tower of Babel. And the reason why those people were making that tower failed, because they were all talking in different languages. Central bus stop, side bus stop, etc., etc. When it comes to building flyover, there is no confusion. When it comes to giving subsidy for buying cars, electric cars, but anyways, it's a subsidy to buy cars, there is no confusion, right? So I think we do far more debate, and there are a lot of differences, but actually when you look at the other lobbies, people who are not in this room, there is absolute consensus about building more flyovers and actually expanding the automobile friendly infrastructure. And I think that's why it's very important that we sort of cover up our differences and move together as a network to do something about our cities and really saving them from more and more automobiles. So I will stop here. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Hey, thanks, Rutul. I think very interesting, and thanks for bringing that completely new perspective to today's discussion. There's one thing that I also wanted to ask you is, as you pointed out, when should we get public transport in place in the new areas that we are developing? Kind of expanding that thought and saying, how should we stop or disincentivize people from using private vehicles? I think is a discussion that is not being done often enough in our cities. The discussion is right now more from the supply side of public transport. But I think we should also start talking about how do we limit the demand for private transport to make our public transport succeed. And you have any quick thoughts on that?
I think that's a great question, Abhijit. Just two very quick things. I think the parking policies, the demand management side, and I think again there we can take a graded approach that maybe get people used to start paying for parking, and then talk about other sort of more serious demand management kind of measures. The other possibility I see apart from the parking is, because I think parking makes driving more expensive. That itself will, sort of work partly. Second part is, I think I find the idea of low emission zone also very promising, which can be easily applied in India. I mean, there are some areas, some cities which they are very intuitively and a very ad hoc manner are restricting vehicles from entering certain areas, right? I think it's a matter of scaling it up and formalizing some of those ideas. And to say that, well, just because you have a car or a two-wheeler doesn't mean that you can go in every part of the city, right? And I think that might work as well. So combination of parking policy as well as low emission zone and scaling it up would really work in our cities.
Got that. Yeah, thanks, Rutul, for that. And we'll move on. I have request from a lot of people to get an opportunity to speak, and I'll come to all of you. I hope you stay on. Please be patient because we also have a lot of people have request. I'll move on to Dr. Rajendra Jagtap. Dr. Jagtap, are you there?
I
think
told you
he is still.
to
I
message.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah. He has said he will join a bit, rejoin a bit late.
Yeah, he said he was
He's-
traveling. He was
Yeah.
yeah,
Out of connectivity.
out of connectivity. Okay,
Okay.
fine. So we'll get to Dr. Jagtap in a while, but we'll come to you, Sanskriti.
Oh, Abhijit, thanks. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's been really great to hear these really nice inputs. And I don't know if I have a lot to say, but I'll also try to be brief.
Yeah.
One thing I want to say is that, CEE, where I work, we were part of the communications and outreach team when a Rainbow BRT was launched like about 9 years ago now. So we did create a lot of material for communication and communication strategy. Which even at that time, both the municipal corporations were a little wary of going full scale outreach with the communications because it was all very tentative that, how will the BRT work, etc. in its new form. But I want to say that we've done some surveys, to understand public opinion, even in the pilot BRT, which was the bus system that was launched on Satara Road. That was created in 2005. And we were doing the surveys in 2013. But even then, when we were asking commuters, bus users, about how they felt about the new system, I mean, at that time, it was already about 6-7 years old. Now, so with the covered bus stops and the dedicated lane, even those two things made a lot of difference to bus commuters who were not used to having any big facilities at all. So it was like just a bit of facilities provided. But then as the Rainbow BRT was being created, we did a lot of outreach with user groups, including schools and colleges along the new corridors, community groups, residents associations, self-help groups. We did also, guided visits to the bus stops for the schools absolutely on the BRT corridor so that they knew how to use the bus system. We also did media orientation and visits by elected representatives to the bus system. And then social media wasn't as much used as it is now. But even at that time, we created a new set of handles for Rainbow BRT. And it was also a way of engaging digitally for, complaints management. And so there were videos created, also cinema slides created, and quite a lot of outreach was done in this way. Another significant thing that happened at that time was that the Pune commissioner suggested that Pune, Pimpri Chinchwad, the PMPML and police, traffic police, that all these 4 organizations sit together. And we should maybe facilitate not only outreach, but also in reach with these 4 entities. And I think that was really, we did a sort of a leaders workshop kind of thing with all the staff that were involved in the creation of these systems. And we had a whole day together trying to envision things together and, do some bonding and set up some systems for, actually functioning together. So that was in 2014-15, and we continued our engagement till about 2016. We created a document on how to continue a communication cell. Unfortunately, I mean, of course, PMPML does have social media and they have PIO and they do also depot-based discussions with commuters. So those are really good things. But I wish they would also really scale up their outreach and not only like marketing communications at your services, etc., but also much more detailed public engagement to design the systems. I mean, good to hear the word delight, of course, but also look at how we can advocate based on the customer's demands, and take it back to the other authorities. So this is what our customers need. There are also some innovations in communications and engagement that are good to look at. So Pune Knowledge Cluster, along with CE and the Safe Pune Traffic Movement, we are trying something out. We are trying to use nudge theory, along specific routes to see how we can get more people onto a new electric bus route. So it's a small trial we will do. We don't know whether it will succeed or not, but maybe I think we do need to do innovations in the way we are communicating and engaging, and see what benefits we can bring to PMPML through such R&D in communications and outreach. And that, this engagement is necessary. As I said, it's not only for customers as marketing communications, but as civic engagement. And I want to come back to that point later. But yesterday, things were said about governance, and today also things have been said about governance and about the 12th schedule, that public transport or transportation planning is not part of municipal. So firstly, the first function, as Mr. Jha also mentioned, is town planning. And why would transport planning not be part of town planning? I think, Rutul, you've perhaps said that transport planning is an integral element of urban planning or town planning. And maybe, how we are looking at planning itself needs to be rethought of. Now, the 12th schedule is from the 1992 era. 1992 is when the Rio Conference happened and UNFCCC was being formulated. Maybe we need to redo the 12th schedule and add public transport into a municipal transport into it, because some of the very critical things that are there in the Rio agenda on climate change and equality, etc., they link to this particular function. Now, coming to PMT, so PMT and PCMT date to the 1950s. They were amongst the first municipal transport systems in the country. And so, okay, if the 1992 12th schedule didn't include it, doesn't matter. Let's look at it as a historic innovation or historic fact that PMC and PCMC have had. And they've created an innovation, which is PMPML. And I think it deserves all the support and strengthening that can be given. And I would like to see that, but because bus transport is so necessary for people's well-being, and Jugal Rathee said WBC, which is also white blood cells, maybe walk, bus, cycle is the remedy that we need, because white blood cells attack diseases, right? So the disease of this dependence on private modes, maybe WBC facilities will cure us of that. But air quality and climate change, these are national commitments, but there's also very important another commitment that India has made, which is to reduce road crash fatalities by 2030. And it's very clear, and Geetam Ji, we've learned from Geetam Ji on this as well, that if we are able to get people off bikes and also cars into walk, bus, and cycle, that will improve road safety. So bus-based public transport and walk and cycle facilities are important not only for air quality and climate change, but also road safety. And this is extremely important. And whether it's anchored by the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, which has this national commitment on road safety, and the minister has been making good commitments on that, or whether it's through the MoHUA, the Smart Cities Mission, or any other urban mission, but we definitely need a national mission on sustainable transportation for cities. There is also, in the JNNURM, the Urban Transport Fund was created, and some things were said earlier also about this. Now, so coming to Pune, PCMC has an Urban Transport Fund. Pune has not made it. However, the Urban Transport Fund is used for any transportation project, including flyovers, and maybe we should ring fence Urban Transport Fund or any such value capture and make sure that it is invested in walk, bus, and cycle, because those facilities actually need all the support that is needed. And value capture, this is a good fund. Let's ring fence it for sustainable transport. To come back to again road safety, last month we had a discussion on child road safety, and this was organized under the District Road Safety Committee of Pune. One thing which was one input which came out was that investment in walk, bus, and cycle is the way we can keep children safe. And it's really important that we think about this very carefully, that public transport facilities may also require a school transport, public transport component. There are a lot of trips which are today by private vehicles, which are school drop-offs. And connecting the ability to go to school, connecting road safety for children, and investing in public transport, I think these need to be looked at together. Now, we should also look at innovation and public engagement, not only communication. And there are innovations like citizens' assemblies, very seriously done, where we are not hearing the voices of children, youth, older people, people with disabilities, women. We hear a lot of noise with bike users or car users, but all these voices, which make up maybe a larger component of the trips in the city, their voices are not there. So can we think of a citizens' assembly which is representative of all these voices, where experts are providing all the information necessary for decisions to be made or inputs to be given to formal decision makers, just with the seriousness of how public representatives in parliament or legislative assembly are provided information? Can we have a citizens' assembly where citizens are able to make decisions or give good inputs to their elected representatives? Elected representatives can be present in these assemblies to listen to what people are saying when provided all the information and bringing their experience to decision making. So I hope that these things will be possible. I am very keen that we actually do a citizens' assembly in Pune on the issue of transportation and sustainable transportation in Pune, Pimpri Chinchwad. If there are others in this group who are happy to help out, that would be welcome. And I hope we can now look at the dismantling of Nagar Road as an opportunity to recreate a really good BRT corridor on Nagar Road. Hope that can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Sanskriti. I think you brought in a lot of interesting perspectives here. And we'll talk about it later, but the nudge theory and how to get people on board. I think these are the soft skills, soft things that we also need to focus on, just not discussing about the infrastructure all the time, but also focus on these things. Citizens Assembly, wow. So again, Kirtiji, I think INHAF has a lot of role to play there. So maybe this can be taken up as something to be done in Pune and Pimpri Chinchwad. So thanks, Sanskriti. We'll move to Anagha. Anagha, you there?
Yes.
Okay, thanks for being so patient, Anagha. And so, Anagha, since you do a lot of work on environment issues, I want to kind of take the discussion to the issues of pollution, the climate change discussions that are kind of getting ground now. In your opinion, what can be done now? How can cities use the entire debate around public transport and get the focus back on PM 2.5, pollution, emissions, air quality index, which Rutul also talked about? Yeah. So I just checked on my mobile, and we are at 230 right now in Ahmedabad. Not a very good situation here either, right? So over to you, Anagha.
Yeah. Thank you, Kirtiji, for chasing me down because it's an honor and a privilege to talk amongst all these stalwarts present today. I am not an transport planner. I do not have expertise in transportation, but I have been working on urban issues, also engaging with politics a little bit and trying to understand where really the problem is. So I think even before I shift into understanding of how the transport affects the environmental aspects of air quality. What I have understood through my years of work are some serious gaps, which I feel are pretty much not very difficult to plug, except that there is a resistance to it. Like we don't want, typically, we don't like to have anything changed, so there is a resistance to that, while they are very easy to do. So I think I would take this opportunity to highlight some of those. If some of these institutional gaps are plugged, probably we will see, and most speakers before me have already placed these points. Rutul, for example, spoke about a nodal agency. Mr. Vishal has shown how an agile institutional mechanism can do wonders for an urban service. So I would like to highlight some of these gaps first. See, right now, if you see all the, even the, or rather the participants of this seminar or whoever was speaking are all from civil society. We do not have an urban planning head of city, so to speak, who can be called as an authority on all urban services in one place, who has a handle about understanding all of this. And I feel that urban planning office, and I have tried to place this idea in Pune as something called as a mayor's backend office, although the commissioner and the rest of the staff is considered as the mayor's office, they are really the administration. They're just supposed to follow what has been already decided by politicians. But mayor can become really like a chief minister of a state, where this mayor has a very state of the art urban planning team who is working to understand the political pulse of the city, understand what people want, because all politicians are extremely sensitive to what are the feelings of people around them. So trying to capture that into urban planning, I think this office is needed. Once this office is needed, right now what happens is any kind of infrastructure project, whether it's a flyover, like someone Rutul mentioned, that flyover, there is no question, you just build a flyover, there is no confusion. The reason is because the voice is louder there probably right now. But the point I'm making is, let it be any infrastructure, the approach right now is that it's an engineering project. And I think that's where also that there is a perspective change that is needed. It needs to be an urban solution service project, not an engineering project. And that's why what happens is, as a designer or as a planner, you do not have that first interface in designing that project. It becomes like a vision that, okay, a traffic congestion needs to get solved. How can traffic congestion get solved? There is an engineering solution of building a flyover. And then some level of data and analysis is generated to sort of justify a project which is already now thought of by somebody. And then that project goes to a contractor and it gets built. And we have to break this chain of bringing in urban planners and designers at a stage where it is yet to become a project. And to do that, to allow that kind of urban granularity in our understanding of that information, of that data, we need this urban planning office to churn out this data every single day. It cannot happen that, okay, now a city is undergoing a development plan, data collection begins. By the time that data collection begins, you're still getting a very snapshot. If today a development plan is made, tomorrow the urban planning team is in action trying to understand what are the problems with the plan that we have put in place. So that is, I think, a very important institutional gap which is missing. I don't think there is a legal framework for such kind of an office, so we will need some legislative reform as well. And here is where I think the mayor of a city, now we are talking about cities as economic drivers, and they are the most important aspects of national vision, growth, everything. We need to treat them as state centers, like as chief minister is for a state. We need the mayor to be that kind of an empowered person with technical information. The second thing that I want to talk about is that any urban infrastructure project, whether even if it's a flyover, we have seen also flyovers failing, we see that because the design, the user interface design is not worked out and it's treated as an engineering solution, we end up not catering to what that solution was for. So to give you an example, in Pune, we have had an excellent project of Chandani Chowk, but today you will see there is chaos in that interchange because there is right from no signage, how people are going to walk. So who was supposed to do that? I sometimes wonder that was the municipal corporation going to do this, or was it the NHAI who is going to do this? Because there is no urban planning around this, it was treated as an engineering project. We completely missed that step of trying to solve, or rather give a service to an urban commuter, and just ended up creating the best possible infrastructure in engineering terms. The third thing is any public infrastructure continuously needs to readapt, and Mr. Agarwal spoke about agility. So institutions now need to have a legislative framework in which they can become agile in responding to changes. Now, Mr. Jugal Rathee is petitioning the PMPML for 10 years. and 10 years something doesn't get happen shows the inability of that organization to be agile to user experiences. So how can we make our institutions agile in changing? And I see that a little bit happening with the metro services, where feedback is coming to them through even social media, and there is some action points that are happening. But most of the other institutions, whether it's the urban planning teams or any transport services, anything, this agility is completely lost. So I think filling up of that gap of urban planning office, having planners and designers in place. Vandana Chavan ji also mentioned about the vertical bars, right? These are design solutions for users. So someone needs to step in before engineering comes in. And the third thing is, even after it is built, let's be fair to our engineers and planners also, that not everything can be predicted. So once it is built also, you are going to need to tweak that all the time based on changes. And right now the world is changing so fast. I use a certain thing or plan it certain way for the users today, but 5 years down the line it needs to be changed. So how can this agility be brought in? Because then otherwise all our infrastructure will become obsolete in 5 or 7 years, the way the world is moving. So I think these three institutional mechanisms, I feel, can be added at almost no cost. This is more like just institutional frameworks. Just we need to make that change and that legislative frameworks, and probably we will see some better approach to urban services, whether it's been flyovers. I am a little bit biased towards also adding road space into our cities. I'm not completely against that, because buses are also going to need roads, and we need to cater to all types of commuters. So but let's talk about all this infrastructure coming together in an urban plan and not remaining pieces of engineering solutions. I think that's it from my side. I hope I have not taken too much time, and thanks a lot, Kirtiji, once again for this opportunity.
Okay, great. Thanks, Anagha. I think very fresh perspective. And in a way, when you talked about empowering mayors, you're also looking at models in London, New York,
Yes.
where you have very strong mayors who run the show, so to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is something that has been discussed. The Constitutional Amendment 1992 also talked about empowering mayors. Some states, some cities also have a mayor in council arrangement where the mayor does do this. But yeah, much more needs to be done. And I like that idea, that term that you use, agile institutions. We really need institutions that are quick to respond, to understand, and then respond to what their citizens need.
Yeah.
Right, great. Thanks, Anagha.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll move on. I have a very old friend online today, Sudhir. Nice to see you after such a long time. Yeah, you're on mute, Sudhir.
Muted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's nice to see. Nice to see the depth to which I think each one of the speakers has spoken. I wanted only just about 3 minutes, because I'm going to speak only that part which actually P Agarwal said it when just before I asked for those 3 minutes.
But
Or
thanks,
just
you stayed,
Okay.
and that's really nice of you.
What he said is about premium bus services, which are being provided in Mumbai, but I think numbers are lacking. And they will always lack because they are actually in the traffic. So that's one part. Second thing is that the metro that they have conceived and they are working on, I don't think they have worked with reality of funding. So metro is going to get delayed. They may stock a lot of things, but it is going to get delayed. And as per the present planning, 2041 is when metro entire network of 487 kilometers will get completed. And that completed is not adequate enough to get the railway crowd totally onto the overflowing railway crowd will coming onto the metro system. So therefore, we are always going to be behind the actual demand. And therefore, it goes back to the days when I used to campaign for BRTS. And I think we got to provide a premium BRTS so that car people move on to premium BRTS. And to do that, you provide premium aggregator taxi, so that a person coming from his multi-story building comes down, just like he calls for his driver to bring the vehicle to his place, he gets this aggregator taxi, which will be of the design that can get into the BRT system. And that premium BRT system is where the car user goes, because car user is not going to get into the crowded public transport system, which is what will prevail even 100 years of our independence. So therefore, you've got to provide this. And what will happen is that my calculations show that I can take away about 60 to 65% of the traffic, car users, onto this premium BRT. By doing just that, the speed of the rest of the traffic increases from 10 kilometers per hour. I'm talking about peak time, from 10 kilometers to about 30 kilometers per hour. That's a very good jump. And I think that should be aimed. The BRT also has to be taken care of. I'm not just talking about premium, because I'm trying to fill in the gap which is going to not be there for a long time. About 20 years from now, it's not going to be there. So I want to provide additional BRT system within that route. And I want to provide the BRT system on the same routes as what the metro routes are, because Mumbai doesn't have too many options. So if you provide that, as the metro system starts getting augmented with number of rakes and whatnot over the years, you can think about various other means. But I think I am very optimistic that if they follow the details, which I have actually written to the Chief Minister also, besides the whole thing getting circulated in MMRDA, I look forward to them reacting to it. Only trouble is that my write-up is about 24 pages, and I think 24 pages is too long for anyone to really open it. I hope they open it. I am prompting them to do that. And this is one place where I thought one could talk about it a little and start talking about it everywhere and give hope to people. When the people start having hope that, yes, things are possible, I think their elected representatives or potential elected representatives will take the issue forward. And I think combined with various other things that have been spoken of by, say, Anagha and also P Agarwal and so many others, I think we can, at least for Mumbai, I am quite hopeful.
Great. Got that. Thanks, Sudhir. And one thing that I got from your interaction is a good public transport system actually benefits everyone, as you rightly pointed out. Even car users will benefit if public transport is of a high quality and more people use it. The city as a whole, everybody benefits. I think that's something really strong.
So Abhijit, just to sort of just make a quick comment, this is exactly what that urban team can do, that it can also put out for the media things that are going right. Because once anything is built or anything happens, everybody has faced the brunt of the construction phase. Everybody has had that traffic hassle, and then nobody talks about what is the benefit to the city. Then the project just runs on its own or just fails. But there is nobody who is analyzing whether this is helping, not helping, what needs to do. And that's where we are failing in even giving the right feed to the media.
Agreed. Agreed. So,
Thank you.
That has come across very strongly through most of the speakers has been the correct messaging and how do you get the message across. I think that is very, very crucial. And I think we have a good person to talk about that. Sunilji, you're here?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Okay, great. So Sunilji left because he had a meeting and then he was so keen to come back. He's back. So thank you very much for coming back and sharing your thoughts on this. Please go ahead.
Sir. Yes, sir. Sir, I'm Sunil Mali. I am resident editor of Daily Pudhari Pune. Two things that I just, before starting, I just want to mention. As Vandana ji and Jugal ji also said that we are not expert, as she is just politician or a representative, and Jugal ji from NGO, and I am journalist. So some comments about media also had made some speakers, and you are all experts. So I am just briefly, I am just put on some points about public transport and BRTS. First, for media, some comments were there. I am I am writing about public transport and BRTS from since last 20 to 25 years in Pune, Delhi. I was working in Delhi Sakal and previously Delhi Lok Satta also. About 25 years, I am writing about civic issues and transport also. And some comment was there that media is not keen, or it's not with BRT or public transport. That's not the case. When I was in Sakar, we as a media, we started and we celebrated bus day in Pune. You might be heard that bus day, and then in 2011 we celebrated bus day. One day for public transport, and no one should use private vehicles. That we as a media initiated the scheme, and after that we prepared a plan also, and for PMP and PMP's development. Unfortunately, it was not carried out by other forces also and stakeholders also. But media is with BRT, media is with public transport, and we are not. I am not talking about myself. I am not praising myself only. But some reporters and some media is with BRT and with public transport also. Just a few. I want to put some my observations, and because I'm not an expert, as Vandana also said, you see some points. First, some points that raised in this seminar by some expert. My some comments or my observations. You may correct it. That is first that per lakh buses per lakh population. That was first slide. That is Pune. I think 31 buses it was said, but per lakh population, how many bus should be there? That is decided by CMP, Comprehensive Mobility Plan of each city. Okay, so for Pune CMP, 55 buses are required. In Delhi, I think 100 buses are required in Delhi. Delhi's population, Delhi's geography, and all that. 100 buses are required. So Pune 55 buses was the figure when Pune's population was limited into the old limit. Now Pune and PMRDA, that is just like MMRDA, PMRDA area is there, and PMP has to provide public transport to PMRDA. So for 70 lakhs population, we have to think about PMP, about bus transport. So 31 buses in your slide, that is not 31 buses per lakh population is there. It's somewhat misleading for Pune. Okay. So then second point is, yeah, one expert told this point. No one here BRT users. No one here BRT users. No one talk to them and no one report to them. The lobby of private vehicles and cars, they are just vocal, and they go to media, and they are just opposite to BRTS. But you should talk to BRT users and the passengers. They are so satisfied. They are so satisfied that they need BRTS. But unfortunately, majority of media does not cover and does not take their side and does not report, excluding and from the few media persons like me and other in other media also. Third point, I want to AC buses. Jugal ji described that why AC buses, but AC buses also required just now one expert was telling that for premium BRT, AC buses also required. Last point before I go to my brief points about Pune BRT, why Pune BRT failed, that I want to tell and I want to just put forth that points. Last point, that town planning and transport planning should be integrated. Town planning and transport planning. What happened that if a city just rises and it spreads, and then town planning fails. And when you talk about that transporting things and some BRT, some metros and all that, but town planning, if town planning is done scientifically, then we can solve the transport problem also. Now, just some points about why BRT failed in Pune. And as we heard that Ahmedabad BRT, and we got some good points for Ahmedabad BRT, that how it is, and now and then we Pune, we media person writes in Pune that look Ahmedabad BRT, how it is going smoothly, and why not Pune is going to Ahmedabad. I also traveled in Ahmedabad BRT, and it's very good. Why it is failed in Pune when it is successful in Ahmedabad and other cities, that is Indore, Bhopal, Surat, Hubli, Rajkot and all that. So first point is no scientific DPR was done for Pune BRT. Hastily it was carried on. It was started when elections were on the corner. At in 2006, it was yeah. 2006 it was started. So there was no scientific DPR. Mr. Suresh Karmadi was MP of Pune, and for JNM, what we can say, purpose, it was started in Pune. So no NMT and no other things in that DPR. So faulty design of that DPR. So the BRT failed in Pune at that time, firstly. Second point is delay in pilot project. In Pune, there were two pilot projects and two pilot routes were there. And then in first phase, we included 1,016 kilometers. But after 23 years, that pilot project is also incomplete. It's very ironically, and it's very serious to note that pilot project is not completed now. So because of it, only few kilometers is completed in Pune, and it's running. Pune didn't get and understand advantage of BRT. What is just like in Ahmedabad. Ahmedabad, the few hundred kilometers network will tell the usefulness of BRT. So if Pune got the about 100 kilometers BRT in running, in functioning, then only Pune will not oppose that BRT concept itself. Then no coordination between PMC and PCMC. That is Pune Corporation and Pimpri Corporation. So we failed to get network advantage in Pune and Pimpri Chinchwad Corporation. Fourth point is incomplete parking lots. So there were parking lots. Some expert was one expert was telling that cycle also, and that is in Ahmedabad also, cycle stand and all that. But in Pune, for last mile connectivity and for private vehicles, there were no there were the spaces for parking lots, provision for parking lot in their plan, but they were incompleted. So last mile connectivity also could not happen. So Pune was the first city in India to start BRTS. After that, Ahmedabad, Surat, and all others, but Pune is failed. And last point that Vandana ji also said, that no political and administrative will. Pune in Pune, no leadership is there for in politics also, in local representatives also, and administration also. So there should be political and administrative will to carry out any plan or any scheme. So for BRTS, political and administrative will was missing, and now if we want to reintroduce BRT or successful BRT in Pune, there should be a political and administrative will, and a representative like Vandana ji also should come forward and fetch for that BRT in Pune. That's what I want to tell some points.
Yeah, thank you, Sunilji. I think valid points, and I think it's very interesting to know that as a non-expert, as you said, you seem to have a good grasp of that it has to have a network. It's very important for a bus system that just one corridor does not work. And I think Pune did have that issue where you had disjointed corridors. You had a Satara road and you had a Solapur road, and then Pimpri Chinchwad was doing its own stuff. And it's not as if these two cities are in isolation. People move across. And if you want to have a system that works, I think that network is very, very important. And this is probably where Pune, even now, we can think of how we can integrate the services. So thanks for that, for those inputs. And I think it has been a good discussion. I think we have got diverse points of views. We have also got some very out of the box innovative ideas. One thing that I could get very clearly is that communication is really, really important in how we communicate that people really want the BRTS. I think that is something that we can really look as a very low hanging fruit and push that. It could be through the media, but if it is not happening through the print media, I think we are now in the social media era where I think we can push these kind of ideas. I think the other thing that came up in the initial part was how do we get the political leadership to be more sensitive, if I can say, and how they are more exposed to sustainable urban transport practices around the world. Maybe focus on training and building their capacities because they can communicate better with their constituency, the people who vote for them, and that is very important for them. I think having this mayor's back-end office, I think was very interesting idea that came from Anagha. Again, other than a few large cities, most of our cities have these very short trips. And I think buses are really important for short trips. And that is where I started from in the beginning, that we really need to focus on buses. And how do we make buses, as OP sir said, they have a very poor image. In Maharashtra and from Pune, आपण त्यांना लाल डब्बा म्हणायचो. We used to call them the red dabba. That was how it was always famous as. And we need to move on from that image of a bus. That is where I slightly I feel that all buses have to be premium. Why should we even talk about premium, non-premium? Buses have to be air conditioned. We don't even ask of the metro whether it's going to be a non-AC metro or a AC metro. Metros are air conditioned by default. Nobody asks about them. Slowly I think we need to start talking about buses like that only, that they are all high quality buses. Everybody should look upon buses like that. When you travel to Singapore, when you travel to Hong Kong, London, they don't differentiate in that way between buses. All buses are really good. Right? And we also need to start focusing on how to disincentivize people using private vehicles. I very often hear people or decision makers say, पहले अच्छा public transport बनाते हैं, and then we will get people on the public transport. It doesn't work like that. There is a lot of evidence around the world to show that it has to be done simultaneously. We need to focus on both the push and pull factors. But thanks, this has been a very interesting discussion. Kirtiji, again, thanks. I think everybody recognizes what a tremendous role you have played in getting all this together. I'll leave it to you to conclude. Over to you, Kirtiji.
Two things. As I said that we had said from the very beginning that this is not the meeting of the people who have been listed to speak. This is not a webinar in that sense. This is an open meeting. And therefore, anyone who is there and anyone who wants to speak would have the facility to speak. So my first thing is this: if there are any people in this group who still want to speak and did not have the opportunity, please come up with your demand, and we would very much want to hear you. I know we already have run about 30 minutes about time, but yesterday we did for 3 hours, and by that count, we still have at least half an hour. So please, that is the first thing. If there's anyone who's not spoken, and I think, if I could make a suggestion in this list, I see my friend Geeta Govind from Cape Town sitting here, and she's a brilliant planner. An amazing. I think she worked with me many years ago, and I just wanted to ask Geeta that you held on for such a last 2.5 hours. Do you have anything to say, because you have kept down and work in development projects in a very big way? Geeta? Oh, she's not there. Okay, Abhijit sir, is there anyone else who wants to? I see Sudhirji's finger up.
Because
anyone else who would like to speak but didn't have the opportunity to speak?
There's one Mr. Akhtar.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's Sudhirji, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. Because the part of the story which I have given the link to my paper is there, but important thing that I have really conceived there is not just getting car people onto the public transport, but to provide a universal accessibility to everyone concerned, not just the wheelchair user, but also to the elderly, the pregnant woman, the infirm, and even a 10-year-old, so that, and high frequency of these microbus which I have conceived. So that would facilitate kind of last mile connectivity also. A lot of analysis has to be done, but we in Mumbai, we already have the data available. You just have to go to the place where share autos and share taxis are going on, and you find the rate at which they are moving. I think that is the capacity you start providing for these microbuses. There's very optimistic numbers I get from here. And that's why I have written the thing, and I've shared the link to my paper, which of course has to go into details if we have to start implementing them. So I thought I should mention this. It's very important that we make everyone accessible to public transport, because we have all the metros are providing, they are all accessible, but reaching metro itself is a problem for most other people. So that is the kind of thing. I've been also working, I was in a committee to see that railways were accessible to persons with disability, the suburban railway in Mumbai. So that gave me a lot of insight of various problems that exist everywhere. So that's where another contribution in that paper. So do please go through the paper, all those who feel interested. And I think I should stop here.
Let me, I think, because there's no one else, I think, let me kind of make
no, there's Arshal, Kirtibeg, Arshal has his hands raised.
Oh, please.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Thank you. It's been an absolute privilege for me to attend this program. I didn't realize it's been 2.5 hours when I listened to all the experts. I'm Arshal, just to give a brief introduction. I am from Guwahati. My basically question is not, I'm not able to direct it to any particular person. In Guwahati, for example, we have these public buses, public transportation system, which is primarily privately owned and privately run. And we don't have a BRTS as of now yet. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for the introduction. Yeah. So we have, but then the problem here is that in most of the routes, we also have the buses compete with the electric rickshaws and the shared taxis, the IPTs. The problem here is that we have seen this. There's a vicious cycle of the public buses losing their passengers to the private shared taxis and all. My main query is the fare of these buses, the public buses, are basically decided by the government. And since these are privately operated, I believe they are not able to earn a operationally profitable, for which they are forced to like delay the stoppage times, so that the buses are the vehicles are fully filled up with passengers, and so they go. This has actually impacted their the whole public perception that buses are slower, and they are competing with the IPTs. Recently, I had a discussion with the Commissioner in Municipal Corporation. He said he is not into regulating IPTs instead of, because various reasons. I just wanted to understand that whether should the government decide and on the fare of the public transportation systems, but then which are privately run, or should we let the market forces decide on the fare so that they can compete fairly with the IPTs?
Who wants to respond? Abhijit, sir?
Hello. Yeah. Yeah. Arshal, I missed the last part of your question. Can you say that again?
Okay. The main question was, should the government decide on the fare structure of public transportation buses, which are basically run by private operators, so that they give a fair chance to compete with the privately run IPTs?
Again, I didn't get it very clearly. So you're saying, should they allow
should
the
the government decide on the fare structure of public transportation, or should the market force? Yeah, or should it be let the market decide on the fare?
You're talking about buses, or you're talking about IPT?
Yeah, I'm talking about buses. Yes.
Okay, so does anybody else wants to answer that? I can answer that, but if anybody else has an opinion on
Abhijit, I think the situation Arshal is describing is somewhat of a, not a well-regulated bus system. These are private bus operators. So it is, in a sense, bus-sized IPT.
I get that. So, Arshal, I mean, a quick reaction from my side is that private sector running bus operations in the long term generally does not work because it is generally not profitable. So they will be cutting corners. There will be issues in the bus system. And in fact, if you remember, Dr. P Agarwal had mentioned that in Latin America, many of those cities actually graduated from privately run bus systems to higher quality publicly run bus systems. The private sector can be brought in, like in Ahmedabad, the private sector runs the buses on an operations plan determined by Vishal Khanama's office or Janmark. And they are paid on a per kilometer basis. They do not have to worry about the ridership or the fare. They have to quote on a per kilometer basis. They get paid on that. The fare risk is always with the public sector, which is how I would suggest that public transport systems be run, where the government takes the accountability for the system. The private sector must and will always look for its own profits. And it doesn't go well with running a bus system or any public transport system, which is more of a service.
One thing I would like to add. Sorry, sir.
Yeah, Vishal.
Please.
As Harshad was asking these questions, because you cannot have a private operator to run the bus system into the city, because in any in take any public transport authority, no public transport authority making profit actually. So actually we are for the better public services. So you cannot have a liberty to have a open fair structures into the system. But as rightly mentioned by Abhijit ji, that in Ahmedabad we are having a GCC contract where the operator need not worry about the fare and all these things. We are just paying per kilometer rate to the operators, and he just need to focus on that scheduling part and all the operational part. The fare and other viability gap funding are handled by the municipal corporation itself. And I think this system is only going to work in Indian cities actually. We cannot have a private player to run the bus system into the city, or because you can't have a fair common fare in that part. So in my opinion, you cannot have a private end player to run this bus system. Yeah.
Thanks, Vishal.
Thank you. I think, if there's no one else, I think, I would just take few minutes.
Just
No
Kirti,
intention whatsoever to summarize. Please.
This one. I think we have a bachelor student of urban planning who just dropped a message, Mayuresh.
Oh,
yeah. So he says it has been an enriching experience. Thanks, Mayuresh, and I hope you are you become a transport planner, because that's what you aim to be. Thanks for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, I think if there's no other, and I have no intention whatsoever to kind of summarize. It's very difficult, and there are a large number of notes. But I essentially still have 4 or 5 things to put to this August gathering. First, of course, I must thank this incredibly good group, and there's so many who have still survived after about 2 hours and 45 minutes, and I'm very, very grateful to all of them. It's hard to believe, Rutul, 2 hours 45 minutes. Vishal Saab, we were saying that, I can't even go. I'm doing, I just can't even come. I have this work and that work. I just, Vandana ji was here, I think, a minute ago, and so I think, just about everyone. So thank you very, very much. I just couldn't, no adequate words to thank. It's enormous. Now, few things that I want to ask you, and all the 4 things that I'm talking about essentially are demands from this group. Abhijit Saab knows that, all the time when I meet him, I make demands. Number 1 is this, that no one could deny that the last 2 days where we heard about 25, 30 people, this has been a very rich dialogue, very, very rich interaction. But it's also true, and it's very unfortunate, that this has been talking among the converts. We don't have anyone from municipal corporation. We don't have anyone from PMPL. We don't have anyone from government. And it's absolutely important that these ideas, these concerns, this suggestion must reach them, even if if they don't have time to come to this meeting. And therefore, I suggest this and ask this question to people who are based in Pune, like Sanskriti ji, and I think Vandana ji, and so many others, that maybe in the next week or 10 days, we'll put together a 4, 5, 6-page document and request municipal commissioner to give us half an hour or 45 minutes so that we could make a presentation to what citizens and experts and specialists felt. And it's absolutely important. As a matter of fact, even though we had one person from Mangesh Bhai from media and Mali Sunil Bhai today, we had told both of them that we are not asking you to come to report. We are requesting you to come to participate and share. And they've done a terrific job. So therefore, what I'm trying to kind of say is that we've got to find a way to reach out to them. And I'm asking Sanskriti or whoever, Vandana ji, if they're around, is this possible? Is it possible to obtain time from the authorities that this is a fairly rich meeting on the subject, on what is happening, and it's much beyond the incident that happened. We are not even talked about it much. Is it possible that we could reach out to them and present what we have found? Sanskriti ji, Vandana ji.
Yes, Kirtibai, let's discuss more how best we can
Okay,
do
fine.
this media
So,
outreach.
Vandana ji,
Yeah.
do you think this is doable? Vandana ji?
Yes.
Okay. So you, Sanskriti, you're saying is doable, and we would think it through in terms of how to do it. So that is number one. Number two is this. I think Mali ji brought out this word very well. He said, so far BRTS is concerned, Pune is failed. That was the exact phrase he used. And I thought the overwhelming voice from this particular meeting is that is not correct. This should not be allowed to happen. And the next action, if at all, has to be how do we strengthen, how do we prevent deterioration, how do we stop one more route being dismantled? And I personally feel we've got to think about this. If you want to go to kind of save BRTS, Pune, whatever, I don't know. And of course, the local people are better placed to deal with it. But that has to be one outcome of this particular meeting. We've got to. Talking about is fine, sharing idea is great, knowing from each other is wonderful. Ultimately, what is important is BRTS should remain on the map of Pune and should become bigger and better and well served. And that's the second thing that I would want to kind of say, whether there is a possibility of save BRTS, or maybe there is a save BRTS, but I think how do you do that? That's the second thing. The third thing is this, that I don't know how you felt, but the meeting yesterday and the meeting today was so good that I thought there were not less than 30 to 40 very, very good ideas. And these ideas need to go beyond conferences. Something has to happen. And this is a perennial issue with conferences and good meetings. Very generous, terrific ideas, but everything ends at 9 o'clock when we leave for our vehicle and go home. Everyone is very busy. There is a great need to find a way to pick few ideas further, those which are very critical. And I think we want to do this. We want to invest in this. And I'm saying this as an organization, small organization enough, that we would very much want to do this. In some cases, we manage, but I not like, say, for instance, just mentioned, we produce a book out of webinar. We are producing second book out of webinar. We are producing a series of monograms, but that's okay, but not good enough in terms of taking ideas further, like, say, for entire thing, Rutul's presentation on cities, which way cities are moving. And this is a terrific ideas that we can't afford to be USA, we can't afford to be Dubai. How do we take this? And I personally feel, so I'm thinking about a small little meeting in about a month's time, a day-long meeting where we, it's not possible to have 40 people, probably we have 5, 6, 7, 8 people. But we discuss thoroughly what could be done with this. And I think, this particular gathering had large number of people like OP, people like Vandana Ji, people who know system rather well. And we have got to penetrate the system, we have got to reach there. And therefore, I think, I'm suggesting a small little meeting in a few days, so that we could do something with this. My fourth point is this, and this is what Abhijit Sharp was talking about. And as a matter of fact, I thought when Rutul was talking, I said, oh, we got to involve this. Abhijit sir and INHAF is doing a study which is on investment in public infrastructure and the need of the poor. And need of the low-income groups, a wider definition, not only poor. And as a matter of fact, this is an interesting subject as well, because, it's not that the investments are not happening, large investments are happening. Someone said yesterday, investment do not happen in response to needs. Investment happen because there are political agendas. And on the other hand, we go on saying that we don't have resources. So there's a large number of things which are involved in this. And I thought this particular work we are trying to do in Ahmedabad and Bhopal, Rutul, I think we'll be able to kind of come and sit down with you and say, look, this is what we're doing. We want to strengthen that work, want to have a few more partners in other cities. So, and we have now a pamphlet ready, which we could share publicly, but I'm really looking for some partners in this work, which has some strength. My last point is this, that this particular meeting is part of the webinar series we're running for last 3 years, and this is the 100th webinar, which means we have dealt with large number of subjects: urbanization, cities, urban crisis, other issues. And as Anagha ji pointed out, the major issue is institutional. And one of the things that we have been, and especially because I personally have some experience, I've been pushing for last 3 or 4 years personally, this idea of National Commission on Urbanization and State Commission on Urbanizations. I was part of National Commission on Urbanization, chaired by Charles Scoria. It happened in the mid-80s. And there is no two views that was one of the most important thinking that happened on India's urban future. There's no one can deny that. It is there in 17 volumes. But it's there, it happened in mid-80s, about 30 years, 35 years ago. No one remembers it. As a matter of Jagan, when he was with NIA, was trying to tell me that, Kirti, if you could find those 18 volumes, I would like to reprint them. We couldn't find them. They must be somewhere, but that's the situation.
They are in our library, Kirti.
Okay. So what I'm trying to say is this, that, no, but I'm essentially talking about this whole idea. And Vandana ji knows this, that I have been pushing national government a great deal of this idea of National Commission Urbanization. Written to Prime Minister, written to Minister in charge of urban affairs several times. We're not able to make it headway. As an additional thing, I was thinking that National Commission on Urbanization is fine, but time has come to think about State Commission on Urbanization. And therefore, we've been actively pushing this idea at the state level. Submitted proposal to Tamil Nadu state government, submitted proposal to Gujarat state government, submitted proposal to Madhya Pradesh state government. We have submitted a proposal to Kerala government. And I'm on the reason I'm talking about is there is finally good news that Kerala government last week has taken a decision to set up a state commission on urbanization. And it's a comprehensive view, comprehensive. And they had put together some 8, 10, 12, 15 people from state and national level. They're given it a time. They're going to set up a secretariat. And I've been essentially talking about the model that the National Commission was this. Now, what has happened is this, and you wouldn't believe me, and I'm not praising myself. A friend of mine told me, there is National Commission on Urbanization you're talking, tom-tomming so much about, was so great. Why are you the only person in the country talking about it? This is what I heard from a minister, that no one ever talks about it. Now, ideas, and I think when we talk about National Commission, we're essentially talking about think tank on cities. Cities can't be managed, I think on firefighting mode. It requires vision, it requires perspective, it requires planning, it requires understanding technology, it requires understanding trends, investment, economy, and all that. Cities are very complex entities now. And therefore, I think, and Rutul, I have also picked up this, with Barjor, I think just 2 weeks ago. So what I'm trying to say is this, that there is a great need for us to look at this institutional aspect of both, and I think it could be sectoral, as we talked about today, in the context of mobility and transport. It also could be, I think, in the wider context, because cities, we know, I think, and I go on saying we are not on the track, and we are not equipped to meet the urban challenge in its complexity. And in fact, even though my friends, say I'm stupid, I go on saying that urban challenge to me is more difficult than the climate challenge, because it's in the short run. And we are just, if you're talking about 877 million people in 27 more years, who is equipped? Which cities? Where would they go? What will happen? And this is just one dimension. And if you're talking about on $640 billion required to meet your needs of infrastructure, and under JNNURM, one of the best managed and conceived urban development infrastructure development project, you spend just $14 billion over a 10-year period. Just imagine the gap. Where do we have the capacity? Even if you have the money. So what I'm trying to say is that the urban issues are much complex and larger. And I think, be Rutul, be it Abhijit, be it Vandana ji, be that Sanskriti ji, we've got to kind of start thinking big. We've got to push this agenda. This webinar series, start to do it, but we are a very small organization, and it's very limited capacity. But we are very deeply concerned. And we're very deeply concerned about what is not happening and the need for it to happen. We require more people to push ideas. We require more people to kind of, demand. We require more people to kind of open new windows of opportunity and new doors, of possibility. So that is how I look upon this effort. And because, largely, I think today we have set these three things that, I said if you could do. One is to really reach out to the authorities in terms of what we discuss. See if Save BRTS Pune campaign is possible. See if you could kind of support and investment in public infrastructure, small projects that are being done. I think more people coming in, more cities coming in, all that would be very, very useful. So with that, once again, thank you very much for this. What is interesting about this particular webinar is we put this together in just 5 days. Just 5 days. And I feel very grateful that no one has told me no. Just about no one. Vishal Khanama Saab said no, but finally, then I didn't say no, but another thing, and he said, look, I was very busy, but he finally managed it. Nice. And I think that's terrific. I think that spirit and And I'm very grateful to my colleagues, Bumaji and Kimaya and everyone else, because they've been working very hard, and we'll be moving to 4 more webinars, soon, and on other subject, that is the work of Janagraha, which has a tremendous amount of support base, because it's all based on empirical evidence and all that. But we're very keen to kind of follow up on this. Bumaji, I'm going to talk to her tonight, and we'll put together a fairly good output from this particular interactions and yesterday and today. We'll make them available to you to add to. And then, of course, we will try and kind of plan that meeting, which I suggested in the next few weeks' time, so that we could get together to decide what to do with this large number of ideas that have come up. And good number of them are doable. So thank you very much. And Sudhir Saab, I never met. I think we written to each other some time back. And Vishal Saab, thank you very much for being here. Vandana ji, thank you. Thank you. You've been very kind. As a matter of fact, she made a remarkable presentation out of the budget in the parliament. Now, I don't remember which is the right word, but she said, our cities are not in, Vandana ji, what did you say? Our cities are not in ICU.
ICUs, they are on ventilators, yeah.
They are on ventilators. And I thought it was a terrific, I think, in a way of saying what the issues are, what the problems are. That is not ICU, it's ventilators. And we've got to kind of prevent this from happening. And the real trouble is this, that the way things are going, it doesn't look like happening. It just, there is no way where smart city will deal with the issues that we're talking about. So it's a peripheral kind of a thing that is happening, and we have much larger, much difficult life and death issues, and if it's not a overstatement to look after. So thank you very much, and it's already 9 o'clock and 3 hours. Thank you, Abhijit Saab, for this wonderful session, and Vishal ji, thank you, Sanskriti ji, Boma ji. Who else is there? Geeta, still there? Say yes, hello. Okay.
Hello, everyone. I am still here and very, very happy to have heard everything. I think there's a wonderful set of ideas and lots of opportunity and possibility. And I think that it will be possible to create a framework. I'm just cooking dinner, by the way, khichdi kadi. You're all welcome.
Lovely, Geeta. Sure. Seen you after a long time. Khat ke jawab do, bhaiya. I don't hear from you. I think it's gone writing to you.
We will write back. Lovely to see you. Bye. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rutul Saab, I'll be after you, and Abhijit Saab, to always.
Bye. Good night.
Thank you.